Hello, good afternoon, everybody. If you could please take your seats. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've had an engaging lunchtime and enjoyed the session this morning. We're about to begin the second plenary session of the day, Building Resilient Food Systems. My name is Fionnuala Sweeney, and I'm going to try and weave the afternoon together for everybody in attendance as we hear from speakers, panelists, and of course, interventions from the floor. So once again, could I ask you to please take your seats so we can begin. We're going to try to stick to time. We're already slightly late, but we can always do our best. So without any further words from me at this moment, let me introduce the Executive Director of the World Food Programme, Ms. Cindy McCain, to open this afternoon's session.
No? There we go. Better. Thank you very much. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this plenary session where we will discuss how together we can build more resilient food systems. Our meeting this week comes at a critical time. Hunger and malnutrition are on the rise in many parts of the world. 345 million people are facing crisis levels of hunger, including over 150 million children. The global systems which move our food from field to fork are under growing pressure, from the combined impacts of conflict, the climate crisis, economic turbulence, and COVID's aftershocks. But resilient food systems are the cornerstone of the Sustainable Development Goals. Without them, we cannot achieve our aims. So we must redouble our efforts to ensure that everyone has access to nutritious, affordable food, while also supporting vital environmental, climate, and social protection objectives. And in this session, we are going to focus on solutions that have been shown to work. At the World Food Programme, we're contributing to building a resilient food system in a whole host of ways. We're trying new and different things. We help smallholder farmers connect to commercial markets with technical support and advice. And we use our own purchasing power to support local and regional economies by procuring much of the food commodities from local suppliers. WFP also supports smallholder farmers with access to agriculture inputs and training. For example, Uganda, where a program providing storage facilities and training has reduced post-harvest crop losses by 98% and helped participating farmers achieve a threefold increase in their incomes. Our collective challenge is to invest in the scale-up and invest in and scale up the programs that are most effective in strengthening food systems, tackling hunger, and reducing long-term humanitarian needs. None of us have all the answers, so I'm looking forward to listening to and learning from the distinguished speakers who have joined us for today's session. Excellencies, it is my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker. At the end of April, just 3 weeks after joining WFP, I went on my first field mission, and it was to Somalia. It's a country that has faced many challenges. Its people have endured years of destabilization and conflict, and today it is right on the front lines of the climate crisis. But Somalia is also a country with great resilience and determination. I met women who had lost everything, but they were still focused on building a better future for themselves and their families. And the government is standing shoulder to shoulder with the people, working to address hunger and malnutrition, bolster national systems of food production, and create new opportunities for young people. I am delighted to welcome His Excellency Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, President of the Federal Republic of Somalia, to tell us more of the great work he is doing. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Madam Executive Secretary, Executive Director, Cindy McCain, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor to be here with you today, talking about one of the most important and pressing challenge of the global environment of today. Today, I stand before you with a deep sense of urgency and commitment to address the pressing issue threatening the well-being of our respective nations, the global food and hunger crisis. It's imperative that we unite and take swift action to reverse this crisis, while simultaneously building resilient food systems that will sustain us today and for generations to come in pursuit of attaining the 2030 Global SDG agenda. Somalia, as with other sub-Saharan countries, has long been plagued by multiple shocks driven by the climate change, including droughts and floods. The shocks are drivers of conflict and instability of the nations and steer internal displacement and migration, further exacerbating food security and malnutrition to the population. The future of our nations is at stake if we do not come together and take action to build resilience and sustainable food systems globally. In doing so, we must prioritize measures to improve local production, reduce post-harvest losses, promote regenerative practices, and enhance food value and supply chain, leaving no one behind in a hunger. In 2021, Somalia defined 7 national pathways that build the foundation for the transformative agenda towards inclusive, resilient, and sustainable food systems. While commitments, efforts, and investments have been made by the government and stakeholders to advance the priorities, the journey is far from completion yet. Ladies and gentlemen, in Somalia, famine has been averted recently through concerted efforts of the Somali government and the humanitarian actors, but the humanitarian needs still remain high among the population. We re-established the Somali Disaster Management Agency, SODMA, in August 2022 to lead on the urgent process of responding to the devastating impact of the drought that affected much of our country. My government is closely monitoring the situation, and as we continue to call on partners to continue humanitarian assistance, while also urging them to reimagine more long-term investment to address the root causes of the hunger. I urge you to invest in food systems and take transformative actions that will ensure the food sufficiency of the countries like Somalia. We must make the shift from humanitarian to development actions to promote long-term resilience. The gap between the humanitarian and development the bridge is the resilience systems so that the long-term investment will give fruits for the generations to come. To facilitate the transformative action, we aim to invest in modernizing farming practices, promoting climate-smart agriculture, and providing farmers access to quality seeds, fertilizers, and training. By adopting innovative techniques and utilizing our land efficiently, we can increase crop yields, reduce dependency on external food sources, and improve food self-sufficiency. to limit access to water resources. The limited access of water resources hinders agricultural production. Somalia, and it's critical that investment focuses on harnessing water through irrigation infrastructure, flood prevention, adoption of climate-smart inputs and technologies to increase local production and productivity in general. My government is leading the development of multi-sectoral policies and facilitating an enabling regulatory framework as a foundation for the transformative agenda. Revitalizing our infrastructure and food supply chains is essential, including building and rehabilitating infrastructure such as main roads, feeder roads, bridges, and marketplaces to facilitate the smooth movement of goods. By creating efficient and transparent supply chains, we can minimize waste, reduce transaction costs, and ensure fair prices for producers and consumers as well. A significant the significant amount of food produced is lost between production and consumption. Hence, reducing post-harvest losses is another critical aspect of building resilient food systems and enhancing the availability of food to the needy. Somalia has already made key investment in infrastructure and financial incentives to support and attract foreign direct investment and to encourage the diaspora investment, which includes zero-rated duty on all farm inputs and implements, including pesticides and seeds and construction of major ports that offer easy import and export of produced goods. In Somalia, we have a significant number of internally displaced persons with limited access to food and in danger of losing their way of life due to the circumstances. We prioritize their reintegration and provide durable solutions for their resettlement and to incentivize their return to the rural areas of the origin. To prevent this migration, we must invest in the development of rural communities, enhancing agricultural productivity, providing easy access to the markets, improving infrastructure, and promoting alternative income-generating activities are essential to ensure the viability and sustainability of rural areas and rural people and their way of life. We call upon development partners and investors to come to the table and work with us to attract capital, technical assistance, and innovative financing mechanism that will catalyze the transformational change we seek. The traditional financing systems of the global today does not produce easy access to those who are the most vulnerable. Hence, then, this way we say a transformative change in financing is very important. And this can only happen, a dialogue to take place between the different partners, actors, and stakeholders. As I conclude, let me reiterate that the transformation of our food systems is an imperative that requires the collective effort of all of us. Let us rise to the challenge, seize the opportunity, and forge a path towards a future where no one hungry, where healthy diets for our children are in abundance, and where our nations achieve sustainable food systems for the generations to come and the current needy people. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Leave no one behind there, an articulation of the crisis in food systems and the encouragement of dialogue, which we hope will be fruitful this afternoon. I'd like to call upon our third speaker, the African Union Special Envoy for Food Systems, Dr. Ibrahim Mayaki, to speak to us. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, Executive Director McCain, thank you for inviting me. All protocols observed. 2 years after the Food Systems Summit of 2021, we are reflecting on why we are here today. Let us take the first part of the title of this session, which is Reversing the Food and Hunger Crisis, and ask ourselves, how do we do that? We have a lot of the answers, but all the data tells us that we have not been successful enough, but instead of reversing the crisis, it has been compounded by other crises. We target achievement of the SDGs, but to be realistic, the work we have to do goes beyond the SDGs and 2030 if we are to address the persistent and chronic hunger and put real focus on equitable food supply and food security. Our food systems are what we have made of them. Unfair and inequitable supply in some areas, buffeted by shocks and stresses, with little or no preparedness to cope in others, highly efficient in those that add value to raw produce sourced from others. To address the current crisis, and undoubtedly future ones, we will need to build equity and resilience in the governance of our food systems in our populations by aiming the next and future generations in some parts of the world to escape from the never-ending cycle of hunger, which is a stain on the landscape in a world of plenty, and which is reversing the progress of some countries and stealing the future of young people who are sometimes driven to take extreme measures to prosper. The Sahel region is an illustration of that. Let us remember that constant food supply and food systems transformation start at the national level. Providing food supply for populations is the first responsibility of any government, whether through using available locally produced food or seeking it across borders. Because increasing our food supply goes hand in hand with growth for economic prosperity, health, and social protection of the most vulnerables in our society. Collectively, globally, we need to act. Climate change has been a disruptive challenge, as we have seen with current realities, both in the north and south of the globe. Extreme weather events have a high cost. They risk the food security of people and reduce the resilience of natural productive ecosystems. The climate change food systems nexus should be mainstreamed effectively to nuance policy and investment interventions locally, foster locally generated improved climate-adapted agricultural technologies for climate-smart practices and approaches. Conservation of biodiversity and environmental governance should be parallel objectives. We need to balance technological innovations and labor-intensive practices that will enhance globally competitive agro-industrial performance. In sum, we have all the needed technical answers. However, these approaches face several constraints of inadequate access to finance, limited investment in climate-adapted crops and livestock systems, and limited access to risk management tools. These proliferations of climate finance instruments should target more resilience-building approaches for people and systems. Less than 2% of climate finance goes to help smallholder farmers, and these farmers are the bedrock of agricultural production, as most countries here today can attest. But the relationships of power are not in their favor. The various crises exposed our unpreparedness and the gap in the resilience coping strategies between the global north and the global south. The man-made food supply crisis is a wake-up call for governments to act, to become more self-reliant in food production, firstly, in their obligation to their populations, and to recognize the importance and interdependence of regional and global cooperation. The pandemic exposed severe inequality. Most households balancing largely non-existent social protection measures amid increased levels of fragility. At the recent Dakar 2 summit, African presidents took the bold move to make the continent less reliant on imports to feed its people and made resilience and food sovereignty a goal. In my role as advocate for Africa, I know that on average, Africa imports about 40% of its food under unfair terms of trade and that have eliminated tariff protection at frontiers. This is whilst 81% of Africa's agri-food imports come from outside the continent and 78% of the exports are directed to the rest of the world. A lack of regional or a stable continental market keeps the majority of farmers in structural poverty. Smallholder producers, processors, and traders are forced to compete with international agribusinesses despite lacking key enablers such as access to technologies, inadequate financing services, fragmentation in the food markets, while absorbing high levels of risk and uncertainty. Accordingly, African countries have neither a regional nor a stable continental market, which persistently keeps smallholder farmers in the continent in structural poverty. The African Continental Free Trade Area will foster intra-Africa trade and is the response to that issue. With a 60% global share of arable land, Africa is in a strategic position to cement global leadership in agriculture and agribusiness and become a food and agribusiness center. To this end, there must be intentional investments and interventions towards increased productivity, production, food supply, and value chain. The reality, though, is somehow negative. Overall, Africa's per capita food production has declined while the population has increased. But it is a fact that expanding Africa's food basket will serve both nutrition and resilience objectives. We have the necessary instruments and regulatory frameworks that can help us move in that direction. As we look to the future, we must prioritize the involvement of youth dynamics. Young people are extensively engaged in policy initiation, development, and monitoring globally, and this is rising in the continent. This will foster collective ownership, control, and accountability, and allow the reform of governance systems. A fast-growing youth population, 60% under 35, and urban growth in Africa will strengthen this engagement. But young people need to believe that they have a stake in the development of a continent. Providing economic activities for them is a challenge that can be tackled by governments helping each other. It is at once a domestic continental problem, but also a global phenomenon. We witness the exodus of not only experts, but the young who see sometimes their horizons very limited. The opportunity for them to contribute to economic development cannot be missed. As we begin our discussion this afternoon, let us recall that investment is critical to scale up local food supply and to truly achieve the SDGs and beyond. I hope you will reflect harder as you make your interventions, reflect that the landscape is changing and priorities are shifting. And this is what we say today is being heard globally and should encourage more people to join the call to action of this plenary session. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mayaki, and thank you, everybody here, for opening the session and for your constructive and remarks, which we hope will provide for an engaging session, plenary session this afternoon. May we thank our guests once again, and we will also show a short video now. We know the importance of the sustainability of food systems, but included in this short video are calls to action that might be of interest. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the floor. Oh, sorry, I should say from the floor to the stage. Thank you very much for joining us. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Please take a seat. Minister, nice to meet you. So let's get underway straight away. This panel is about, the purpose of this panel rather, is to take stock of progress to date, the achievements, the milestones, and any gaps. And I would like to start, first of all, with the Minister from Italy, Lola Brigida. Thank you so much. Italy has always been at the forefront in many ways of, you know, traditional, fantastic food, and it's known for that, not only for its beautiful sites, but at the same time, as we know here in Rome, we're facing climate change and other challenges. So what is Italy doing to try and both reinforce its heritage, but also encourage other countries and help them to do the same? Absolutely.
Grazie, buon pomeriggio. Ho ascoltato degli interventi davvero interessanti da questo palco, perché aprono a uno scenario nel quale ognuno deve portare il proprio contributo. E sono lieto di poter intervenire portando quella che è l'esperienza italiana in questo settore, come mi è stato appena chiesto, avendo a cuore la sostenibilità ambientale e la resilienza dell'agricoltura, la capacità di mantenere fermi i due pilastri che garantiscono quell'equilibrio sociale e quella sicurezza alimentare che noi tutti ricerchiamo. Oggi l'agricoltura deve dare risposta alla domanda di beni alimentari in un contesto di cambiamenti climatici, costo crescente dei fattori produttivi e volatilità dei prezzi dei prodotti agricoli, anche dovute all'aggressione della Russia all'Ucraina, che in questo momento crea instabilità in termini mondiali per molte delle filiere alimentari. Nel mio intervento vorrei soffermarmi su 4 punti che ritengo fondamentali per la resilienza dei sistemi alimentari: la riduzione delle perdite e degli sprechi alimentari, la gestione dei rischi, l'innovazione e la formazione. Il primo punto su cui vorrei fare una riflessione è il tema degli sprechi alimentari. L'Italia è fortemente impegnata in materia di economia circolare con azioni per riduzione di perdite e sprechi alimentari a partire dal 2016, nella quale venne normato una legge che permette oggi di avere un tavolo permanente nel quale partecipa tutta la filiera produttiva, discute, propone e investe per riuscire ad affrontare il tema in una visione complessa. Altrettanto centrale è il tema della gestione del rischio. Il reddito agricolo è sempre più esposto a pressioni derivanti da una marcata volatilità dei prezzi e instabilità del mercato. In risposta a queste criticità per il nostro settore agricolo abbiamo sviluppato una nuova strategia di gestione del rischio che prevede una combinazione di interventi volti ad aumentare la resilienza delle nostre aziende. Fra gli interventi attuati a livello nazionale a decorrere dal 2023 è operativo un fondo mutualistico nazionale per la copertura dei danni catastrofali. Il fondo agisce in piena complementarità rispetto agli altri strumenti di gestione del rischio e in particolare rispetto alle polizze assicurative tradizionali e si inserisce nel contesto più ampio di una strategia composta da investimenti e attività di formazione e assistenza tecnica. Proprio questo fondo è stato attivato per supportare le nostre aziende agricole colpite dall'alluvione in Emilia-Romagna negli ultimi mesi. Innovazioni tecnologiche, un altro elemento importante, giocano un ruolo determinante per l'agricoltura e la filiera alimentare e vanno rafforzate per rafforzare la loro competitività. L'alto valore aggiunto dell'agricoltura italiana, che nel 2002 ha raggiunto i 37,4 miliardi di euro, deriva tra l'altro dalla meccanizzazione agricola e dall'innovazione tecnologica che coniugano alti livelli di produttività e ricorso a pratiche agricole sempre più sostenibili. A livello nazionale, la ridefinizione della politica agricola italiana prevede strategie e politiche per affrontare l'attuale crisi alimentare globale. In questo processo è importante che lo sforzo pubblico sia coniugato, questo è uno sforzo che stiamo facendo, con interventi privati. Oggi in Italia le app e i sistemi smart sono utilizzati da più del 70% delle aziende agricole e proprio in periodo Covid si è elevato molto l'utilizzo di nuove tecnologie per riuscire a trovare nuovi strumenti per assicurare cibo alla popolazione italiana. Sul fronte pubblico il governo italiano si sta adoperando per ridurre il divario digitale tra aree rurali e urbane e tra piccole e grandi aziende agricole, migliorando il livello di connettività e aumentando il livello delle competenze digitali. A questo scopo saranno finanziate attività di formazione e consulenza per aumentare le competenze degli agricoltori, favorendo l'adozione di nuove tecnologie. Abbiamo investito quest'anno più di 1 miliardo di euro per l'innovazione e la digitalizzazione, tra PAC e interventi previsti in legge di stabilità. Abbiamo stanziato 100 milioni per un fondo di sovranità alimentare che permetta di sostenere le filiere deboli. Stiamo promuovendo l'agricoltura di precisione per la produzione di frutta e verdura senza residui di pesticidi e per l'uso efficiente dell'acqua e di altre risorse naturali. Sull'acqua stiamo investendo in un piano strategico che permetta di arginare la siccità ma anche di contenere gli effetti collaterali di eventi catastrofali come gli alluvioni. Un altro asse strategico è quello della formazione, infine, in termini di educazione alimentare nelle scuole e di formazione di nuovi imprenditori agricoli negli istituti agrari. Finanziamo l'acquisto di terra per giovani e donne che non hanno risorse proprie, che servono anche al ripopolamento di aree interne. E da quest'anno attiveremo il servizio civile agricolo che permetterà ai giovani di fare un'esperienza di contatto con il mondo dell'agricoltura. Vogliamo che l'agricoltura torni centrale anche in termini culturali, non solo per la produzione, ma anche per la manutenzione del territorio. Per noi gli agricoltori, gli allevatori e i pescatori restano i primi ambientalisti su questo pianeta perché sono quelli che traggono dalla terra e dal mare e dall'allevamento le risorse per sostenere le proprie famiglie e spesso sono legati a questa attività per tradizione familiare. E troppo spesso invece sono stati creati dei meccanismi che hanno messo in contrasto l'agricoltore con la manutenzione dell'ambiente, con politiche viziate da ideologismi che hanno penalizzato il sistema agricolo. Concludo evidenziando che questi 4 assi di intervento debbono essere sostenuti e perseguiti in maniera trasversale da tutti gli attori pubblici e privati nel settore agroalimentare e occorre che la politica abbia la possibilità di agire in maniera decisa a livello nazionale, ma ovviamente in tutti i consessi internazionali. E ringrazio per questo il PAM di aver proceduto all'organizzazione di questo dibattito particolarmente rilevante ed interessante. Grazie e buon lavoro.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. The Minister for Agriculture there speaking about the initiatives his country, his government are taking in the areas of agriculture and food sustainability. I'd like to keep moving if it's okay, and you're all welcome to sit or stand as you wish. Maybe a little bit of housekeeping. You may occasionally see me on my phone. I'm just keeping in touch and contact with the production team who are working behind the scenes to make sure this event goes smoothly and on time. So I'm not on social media in case you think I might be. May I call next on the Liberian Minister of Agriculture, who's happy to stand, Minister Janine Cooper.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me to address this panel. Real GDP in Liberia grew at close to 5% the past few years, and 2.3% of that growth, or nearly half, came from the agricultural sector. The sector itself has grown to 5.9% in 2022, significantly topping our pre-Ebola high growth rate of 5%. Increased crop production, especially rice and cassava, were the main drivers of growth in the sector. But food security remains a major challenge for the population. In 2022, the Global Hunger Index classified Liberia as a country in a serious state of hunger. Faced with threats from the three C's, COVID, climate, and cost of living hikes due to the conflict in the Ukraine, the government of Liberia embarked on a deliberate policy of transformation of the agri-food sector in several ways. Most especially, we decided to walk the talk. Get out and do it. Access to finance, expanding production and cultivation, and catalyzing agro-industries, those are our priorities. To President Weah's food systems pathways of empowering women, youth employment, and farm mechanization, we focused on partnerships, especially with the private sector. So I want to highlight a couple of initiatives here as examples of the concrete actions that we are taking and the results that we're already seeing. The Liberia Agricultural Commercialization Fund, the LACF we call it, is a $38 million fund set up by the World Bank and IFAD targeting agribusiness SMEs and commercial farms as part of larger agricultural and rural transformation projects. The LACF has in the past 10 months financed 80 agribusinesses, while its parent projects have supported more than 50 cooperatives and thousands of beneficiaries with improved seeds, agricultural inputs, and targeted service provision. This translates to more than $8 million disbursed to businesses operating in 7 critical agri-food value chains. The LACF has then been complemented by USAID, which has also given out grants of more than $7.8 million to agribusiness SMEs, and UNDP, which is providing more than $1 million in catalytic funds to several dozen SMEs. So that's practical de-risking. We build interest in agriculture by showcasing an emerging commercial agribusiness ecosystem and leverage that to attract complementary funding. Large-scale new commercial investment in the agri-food sector includes more than $120 million in oil palm rubber and the country's largest ever egg production facility. Africa's largest organic oil palm plantation is well on the way to produce palm oil that is RSPO, Round Table on Sustainable Palm Oil certified, and meets international benchmarks for sustainable production. The second example we have is rice production, where the government is intentional about getting rice right. Rice is our staple, and although we have all the studies and strategies, getting rice right requires overcoming formidable obstacles in mindset that sees the sector as not commercially viable, including transforming inefficient production practices. So like with the LACF and other development projects, we began by empowering smallholder and subsistence farmers with distributions of seeds and other inputs that will help them increase their production and give them the support they need to reduce post-harvest losses to zero. Then we moved to the SME commercial producers, including cooperatives and processors. And in the past 18 months, we've built rice processing capacities from less than 2,000 metric tons per year to now at least 24,000 metric tons per year, a 12-fold increase. We targeted to cultivate this year 10,000 hectares, bring it into irrigated production this planting season, but already we have reached 18,000 hectares and we're not done. From a high of 2,500 metric tons of milled rice in 2018, we anticipate that this harvest will have 24,000 metric tons of milled rice, a 10-fold increase on Liberian markets. So we've sourced the funds to support off-taking the rice through support to the National Homegrown School Feeding Program, and we will off-take through dedicated government food purchases for the military prisons and hospitals. And our multinational companies are prepared to purchase our surplus production. So we've gone all along the value chain. We're just getting started. Our goal is to meet our 75% of our national consumption of 400,000 metric tons within 4 years, and we are doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Because I'm in touch with the production team on my phone, they have asked if you don't mind the remainder of the panel staying in your seats, if that's okay. It is a production issue, and I apologize. Let's move swiftly along to Mr. Olawale Rotimi of JR Farms. Thank you for joining us. I have a question because as someone who's a private actor, obviously in the private sector, working in, agri and food systems, what have you seen that inspires you or that you think you can share with everyone here today that works? I think it'll work.
Hello.
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And my name is Olawale Rotimi Okoyemi, and I work for JR Farms, a multinational agribusiness company operating in Nigeria, Rwanda, and Zambia. Before I answer the question, we move capital across Africa, and we work with government and development partners in solving food problems in Africa. Over the years, this is 11th year we've been working around the continent. I'm the founder, and I'm the oldest. So, we have 91 people working in JR Farms, and I'm the oldest, and I'm only 34. I'll be 35 on Thursday. So that you know how young people in Africa are driving changes in the food system and what is possible. What I've seen over the years is that when we come in meetings like this, which I often attend, you don't see a lot of private sector companies. And we are the one moving capital. We are the one working with smallholder farmers. We are the one building the capacity of smallholder farmers. But you see the room filled with government development partners, which is really good. But it's also very important. We have the JR Farms of this world. We have the Nestle's of this world. We have the Unilevers of this world, who are on ground, taking the risk, paying the taxes, also seated in this kind of room, discussing food security. Because they are going to be affected when you make the policies as government and as development partners. So it's really important that you bring key stakeholders in the private sector, like myself, moving capital across border in Africa, facing the problems real time. I drive on the bad roads. I face the immigration challenges across the continent. So we should all be in rooms like this. First point. The second point, it's very important that food system or food security must never be politicized, which is one of the things, I see from my experience in Africa. For example, when you're making appointments around ministers, making policies around food system, it should never be politicized because food is human right. We all have to eat. Who you are, whether you're young, old, you have to eat. So we must never politicize food system. Food security, policymakers, government present here, it's very important that we are very objective and empirical about food system because our continent is threatened, for example, in Africa. And lack of food on the continent is intertwined with other crises. For example, insecurity. When people have food, there are less chances they get involved in violence. You see what I'm saying? So it's intertwined with insecurity. It's connected to lack of access to education also. So we must never politicize it because it's extremely important. Lastly, on the point of partnerships, it's extremely important. I said earlier that we have to bring the key stakeholders on board, the private sector guys. Government cannot play the role of private sector cannot play the role of government. Government is making policies, developing infrastructure, and making sure the environment is enabling for businesses to thrive. It is important that you partner with private sector businesses. For example, we are open to partnership as a company. We've worked with many UN agencies, FAO, ILO, and the likes, on various projects on the continent, in Rwanda, in Zambia. We have projects with ILO, for example, now in 4 countries on the continent. So it's important because we cannot keep reinventing the wheel, right? We have to connect all these dots together. We can't be doing the same thing over the years and expect a different result. We have to change strategies. We have to look at where we have the strength. The private sector have the strength in this area. Government has the strength in this area. We have to connect all this together. It is extremely important. So we have to live with this point of partnership. Why should government, for example, invest in this sector when the private sector is there and government can easily do the right policy for the private sector to thrive? This is extremely important. These are key points I would like to make. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. The question of public-private partnership is a long-standing one. I'd like to turn then to Quinfeng Zhang, who is Senior Director for Agriculture, also Food, Nature and Rural Development at the Asian Development Bank. And many people may not know this, but the Asian Development Bank has committed 14 billion to help with food insecurity. But my question is, what exactly is the role of the bank in doing this, in making this commitment?
Thank you so much, moderator. And also thanks a lot for the FAO, WFP, and also IFA to invite the Asian Development Bank to attend this very important event. To answer the moderator's questions, probably I structure my observation into the 3 points. One is the urgency and the importance that drives food security in Asia. Second is the action adopted by the Asian Development Bank. Third is current emerging issues and also way forward. Number 1 is Asia now is a home to over half of the world undernourished populations. Right now, food crisis is the number 1 emerging issues right now occur in Asia Pacific. Last year, because of the Russian invasion of the Ukraine and also the food inflations, number of the countries just reached the pinpoint, like the Sri Lanka just collapsed. So this is an immediate crisis, but at the same time, we also look at these long-term challenges, particular impact from the climate change. You can see last year, because of the floods in Pakistan, the drought in Yangtze River, and also the heat wave in India, all of them affected the agricultural productions, dropped its productivities and the yields of the wheat and also rice and so on and so forth. And at the same time, agriculture also extensive use of the natural capital, like uses 70% of the oil resources, and also the 50% of the land resources, and also causes 80% of the biodiversity loss. With this backdrop, IDB introduced a $14 billion food security package, try to balance short-term immediate relief, and same time also address the long-term challenges, particularly the climate, food, nature, nexus. So this $14 billion responses basically cover the 2022 and 2025. Last year, 2022, we delivered $3.5 billion already. Nearly $1 billion being invested to support the vulnerable populations and also support the small farmers. About the $1.8 billion being allocated to enhance the resilience of the food system. Additionally, $900 million being directed to support finance the private sector, trade, and also the investment, and also branch this public-private partnership. Of course, nearly half of this long-term investment also relate to the climate actions. My last point is about the emerging issues and also the way forward. Currently, Asia Pacific is still severely affected by the food insecurity. Factors including the ongoing annual effect on the agricultural productions, currently rise price due to the trade restrictions in a number of the countries, and of course, the uncertainty surrounding the Black Sea Grain Initiative contribute to this stress as well, because Asia Pacific still about 30 countries import the food from either the Russia or the Ukraine. Another key challenge now is the small farmers who play a very important role for the supply chain. Right now is very, very vulnerable. The lack access to the financial capital and also the aging is a key issues, also less diversified in the farmer community, also aggravate this food challenge as well. Another challenge is sort of the debt structure in Asia Pacific, also unhealthy, unaffordable, and not accessible. So address one of the issues, I can say Executive Director Cindy just mentioned about these 5 key actions, very relevant, and also these 5 actions also very relevant to also align well with the Asian Development Bank food security ambition as well. One thing I want to mention about it, this year ADB also programmed $3.5 billion to continue support the food system transformation, including support the small farmers, promote the smart farming, digital agriculture, and also the nature-based solutions. With this, I look forward to further work with our private sector, academy, and particularly UN agency like the WFP, FAO, and the IFAD. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A multi-sectoral approach. Thank you very much. I'm going to move straight away because we're very conscious of time to Dr. Shengen Fan, who's Dean of the Academy of Global Food Economics and Policy at the China Agricultural University. And thank you. As someone who's on the front lines of research and food systems, what do you see is being done well?
Yeah, here I also represent CGIAR. I'm assistant board member of CGIAR. So what have we done well? I think for the last 2 years, the CGIAR has introduced drought or sort of stress tolerance varieties like let's say maize varieties that have already been adopted by almost 70 million smallholders. So many have adopted the drought tolerance varieties that can produce a pretty good crop, even under drought. So that's one achievement. Secondly is nutrition. So we can actually add micronutrients into certain crops through breeding, so called biofortification. And today, 86 million people, the families, smallholders, are producing and eating biofortified foods. So it's same foods, but they will have more access to iron, zinc, vitamin A, and many other essential micronutrients. And obviously, number 3 is the digital revolution. The CGI is really pushing, make sure that smallholders will have access to drones, AIs, e-commerce, and link that to consumers. And number 4 is women's empowerment. So we are treating that as a research topic to make sure that how women can be empowered in agriculture, in food system. It's not the whole food system. So that has helped enough women to empower themselves, to improve their family's income, nutrition, and the whole society has benefited from that. Now, obviously, supporting countries' initiative is so critical. Here I heard the ministers from Liberia and also ministers from many other countries. So CGI is working with national governments as partners to make sure that they can access data, information, knowledge other countries' best practices to help the country to develop the food system transformation strategy. Partnership, absolutely. Here, I just wanted to give you one example, the so-called Resilient Local Food Supply Chains Alliance in DR Congo, actually in partnership with Italy. And CGIAR works with not just the private sector, yes, private sector, smallholders, farmers organizations, research, with national research organizations and so on. So that partnership involves many partners, not just a pair. And that really helped women and smallholders, youth to access to knowledge, finance, markets, and even beyond. Now, talking about a partnership, next March 2024, there will be an event in Montpellier, supported by CGIAR and the University of Montpellier, to bring different stakeholders together, knowledge, data, information, to develop a roadmap to transform our food system. So this is very critical. So what do we need to do more? I think this is actually much more important. To be frank, we have not made much progress for the last 2 years. What do we need to do more? I think at the country level or even at the global level, policy coherence is so critical. Food, water, land, environment, all these have to come together, starting from the national level, from your parliament, from your Congress. We need to have a leadership group to really coordinate food system across different ministries. Otherwise, we will not be able to move forward. And then that's second, to bring innovation to farmers. I mentioned about, yes, so many million farmers have access to knowledge, information, but there are 500 to 600 million smallholders that do not have access to that knowledge, data, information, finance, digital revolution, and so on. And I very much agree, investment. The minister from Italy, we need much more investment. To achieve ending hunger by 2030, we need probably $33 billion more investment. 16 billion must come from donors. The rest come from the countries. And more importantly, it's the innovation part. I think the minister also mentioned that. We must accelerate the progress of innovation. We must invest in innovation. Without that investment, we will not be able to achieve ending hunger sustainably by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fan, of course, you're board member of CGIAR. Thank you. Finally, before we go to some planned interventions from the floor, which we obviously want to hear from people and their points of views, I'd like to turn to the minister from Germany, His Excellency Johann Flaschbach, State Secretary at the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. How does Germany look at these questions about food systems and resiliency and progress?
Thank you for giving me the floor, and let me apologize first that I was late. I was just hanging in the steering committee for the Ukrainian reconstruction and recovery, where I'm representing Germany. And it is very much linked to what we are discussing here, by the way. And as we are discussing about resilience, we were hit by shocks like the war, the Russian war in Ukraine. Prior to that, the pandemic, so harsh, is a very obvious indication that our food and agriculture systems are not resilient. Otherwise, they could digest it in a different way. So our view on that and our approach is, and I can continue with what you have said, to have a holistic approach, starting from what we call the humanitarian development peace nexus, but extend it, have a broader view on that, including the planetary questions like climate change, of course, biodiversity. At all the panels, I always mention fertile soil as a maybe scarce resource we have when we are discussing about agriculture. So you have all these environmental issues, but also the societal issues. You mentioned bringing in the women and the youth, which is linked to the legal systems. Do they have access to land rights? Do they have land titles? All this is enormously important. And that is a precondition to have this holistic approach to increase the capability of countries to produce their food. It's not everywhere in the world possible in the same way, but many countries do have a much higher capability or potential than they are using at the moment. And looking at Liberia, Janine, at our last meeting here at the IFAD meeting, you don't know how many times I quoted you, because you told me, and we heard these impressive numbers again today, that you want to turn it around. I remembered from 75% imports of rice to just turn it around to 75% domestic production. And that is, we need to have these targets and then look into the preconditions. What is missing that this is not happening? And I hope after 3-4 harvest seasons, you will be successful. You will be our hero, definitely. And then we need to learn from Liberia how to turn it around. Let me finish by adding 2 examples on our bilateral and multilateral cooperation in DRC. We are doing exactly that, promoting training on the ground with a specific focus on women to bring them into the game, because they can make a tremendous difference. And what I announced this morning at a breakfast, the school meals program we are supporting in PDR Laos and in Sierra Leone. And the specific link is something that attracts or touches me so much. It is a masterpiece, I would say, of SDG implementation, because you start with the education sector. You provide the school meals. You bring the women to school through the school meals. You look at not any kind of nutrition, but good nutrition. And then the food we are bringing to the kids is coming from the region. So we give an incentive for the local production instead of bringing in thousands of miles to the kids. I think that is the way we can make a difference. And my last point, starting with the kids, is so enormously important, because once we know it in those countries, like my own country, many other countries, where we don't have a lack of nutrition, but where we do also have a problem with nutrition, because people who have access, who have the money, don't go for good food. And if we don't teach this at the age of our children, then we will miss a huge opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So we'll now have some interventions from the floor, and each speaker will have 2.5 minutes, and I'd ask you to please keep to time, because we are running behind. May I call on Mr. Rocker, President of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Distinguished ministers, esteemed participants and colleagues, today we continue to witness how a catastrophic hunger crisis of a global concern is unfolding in front of our eyes, with Horn of Africa, Sahel, and Lake Chad regions experiencing not the worst food crisis in decades. Cyclical crises associated with droughts, crops failure, and low food and pastoral production are affecting more than 250 million people globally. Millions of lives are already being lost, and the situation continues to deteriorate. People's access to reliable, affordable, and nutritious food grows in many parts of the world. And while we continue to address urgent needs, we need to set finally the foundation for resilience. More efforts must be made to support long-term food security, livelihoods, and resilience plan. In addition, system-level improvements are needed to escape a cycle of recurrent crises, including investments in climate-smart food production in conflict-affected areas. We also need reliable mechanisms to support hard-to-reach communities hit by food shortages and skyrocketing prices. And given that famine and hunger are humanitarian and developmental challenges, as well as global security concerns, we need new strategies and collective bold actions by sequencing and layering humanitarian response to longer-term strategies toward the zero hunger goal. Measures must include investment in strengthening grassroots food system and community to sustainable achieve food and economic security. And one of the approaches is scaling up an anticipatory action for food security based on forecast and risk analysis. Famine is a risk, particularly in context with protracted crisis, and climate change is often a contributory factor. It means that we need to connect across humanitarian, development, and climate efforts and overcome institutional barriers. And how many times, Mr. Speaker, we have listened, and we have to do this, and we have to do it now. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, providing for the most vulnerable and marginalized communities and ensuring they have access to adequate food, especially in emergencies, is at the core of what the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society Network is doing. As always, our response focuses on the hard-to-reach communities and the ones that are often left behind. To address hunger crisis, our priority focus is on strengthening local capacity and fostering locally led action, which is essential for building resilient food systems.
Thank you.
It is necessary to boost the resilience of communities so that they are prepared for future shock. We prioritize putting the last mile first by basing our decision investments on what will bring the greatest benefit to the people most exposed and vulnerable to famine risk, and ensuring locally led action that builds community resilience.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I know that time is quite constrained, so I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to His Excellency Riccardo Paterno di Montecupo, who is the Grand Chancellor of the Sovereign Order of Malta. 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this very important and well-timed summit, as well as to congratulate Minister Lollobrigida and the other distinguished discussants upon their interventions, very thoughtful and pertinent indeed. Speaking about building a resilient food system, we cannot ignore the extensive damage caused to food security in many countries, especially in Africa, by the tragic conflict currently underway in Ukraine. The Order of Malta shares the deep concern of so many countries about the disruption in supplies of basic cereal and of other essential foodstuffs. Food prices increased sharply, in some cases even by 70%, and disruption in supply chains has contributed to high inflationary pressure as well as to the shortage of basic foodstuff. The same countries have suffered heavily from the effect of the COVID disease and suffer as well from the environmental degradation and the harmful impact of climate change. For these reasons, the Order of Malta believes that a prompt resumption of the UN-sponsored agreement is urgently needed for the secure transit of the grain products through the Black Sea and for their availability on local markets of many countries worldwide. Vital food supplies should never be subject to any form of political misuse, discrimination, or diversion. Equally, humanitarian aid should be conveyed and made available to all those in need, irrespective for their nationality, belief, gender, or any other considerations. We believe that supporting local agriculture, facilitating the access of the products of small farmers to the markets, and improving nutritional habits and standards are key components of a strategy aimed at ensuring food security and a resilient food system. In Lebanon, for example, the Order of Malta is carrying out projects that support local farmers in growing local agricultural crops and in exploring the potential for marketing locally manufactured products such as olive oil, oregano, and orange. In Africa, the Order of Malta supports projects throughout various hospitals aimed at addressing malnutrition of mothers and children. In Namibia, the ambassador has promoted the establishment of an agricultural school for professional training.
Thank you.
In several Latin American countries, the mass of the order of facilities, the import and distribution of food donated by various donor organizations. The Order of Malta stands ready to work actively and partners with UN agencies and bodies, including FAO and World Food Programme, as well with other international relief agencies and civil society organizations, with a view to helping the poor and the most vulnerable people in the effort to improve systems of food production and resilience, according to the needs to the specifics of each country.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. We are so behind, but we really appreciate, and I know it's important to hear every voice in the room. I'd like to turn now to Richard McCarthy of the World Farmers Markets Coalition, and please, if you could, 2.5 minutes.
I will. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address and hopefully echo many of the important calls to action that we have heard thus far. I represent an organization that was founded 2 years ago and is one of the practical outcomes of the Food Systems Summit. I am excited to represent the family farmers and fishers, consumers and communities from over 70 countries in the world that are embracing and reimagining the ancient mechanism of farmers' markets for the 21st century. In reimagining them, we learned something, that farmers' markets do not just happen, but rather their reinvention comes with an important commitment to multi-stakeholder governance and, most importantly, management. They must be run. In order to run them, it requires investment, a commitment to missions that are committed to transparency and local procurement. When they are run well, extraordinary, surprising things can happen. We can utilize and leverage them as the traditional incubator for small family-based enterprises, especially for women and youth who flourish within and under the umbrellas and tents of farmers' markets. We can also make sure that they flourish as a risk mitigator for vulnerable consumers who utilize nutrition, farmers market nutrition programs, whether low-tech or digital currencies, in order to reward consumers who run towards healthy local foods. And then during times of great stress and shocks, whether climatic or man-made, farmers markets can help to rebuild the social contract that builds trust, which is the basis with which we can lean on resilience in our local food systems. So I call to you to invest in these simple, ancient, yet reinvented institutions so that we can build healthy local food governance for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'd like to call now on some other people in the room who would like to obviously share their point of view. 2 minutes each, I've been told. So if you could please stick to time, that would be fantastic. First of all, Irvin Fried Mamani Macacta from Bolivia, the Vice Chancellor of External Relations. 2 minutes.
Muchísimas gracias. Esta cumbre sobre sistemas alimentarios +2 se realiza en un momento de múltiples y sistemáticas crisis como la crisis alimentaria, energética, climática, sanitaria, económica, comercial y social que afectan a nuestros pueblos y que ponen en riesgo la vida de la humanidad y de la madre tierra. Si a esto le sumamos las presiones del mercado, el incremento de los precios, la ruptura de las cadenas de valor ocasionados por la pandemia del COVID-19, los conflictos bélicos, tenemos un ahondamiento aún más grave de esta crisis alimentaria. Bolivia considera que es fundamental garantizar la seguridad y soberanía alimentaria del planeta bajo un enfoque de sistemas agroalimentarios sostenibles con autoproducción para el autoconsumo, vinculados al clima, a la madre tierra, al agua, al bosque y sobre todo a la vida. En la gestión 2021 atendimos el llamado del Secretario General de Naciones Unidas de realizar diálogos nacionales de cara a la cumbre sobre sistemas alimentarios y como resultado de los diálogos presentamos la hoja de ruta nacional que refleja el sistema de producción alimentaria basado en la agricultura tradicional que está conformado por sistemas de producción y distribución liderados por pequeños agricultores, campesinos e indígenas, redes locales de comercialización y abastecimiento articulados a los sistemas agroindustriales, sistema que está demostrado hoy más que nunca una lucha contra el cambio climático. A través de la hoja de ruta nacional profundizamos nuestra política hacia sistemas alimentarios más sostenibles bajo la premisa de saber alimentarse para vivir bien. Por ello, abocamos nuestros esfuerzos en políticas de recuperación, revalorización y fortalecimiento de los sistemas alimentarios basados en la agricultura tradicional, considerando su papel fundamental en la reducción del hambre, la generación de empleo y el desarrollo económico en el marco de la política del vivir bien en armonía y equilibrio con la madre tierra. Nuestra política de seguridad con soberanía alimentaria es una respuesta a la crisis alimentaria, permitiéndonos generar mayor resiliencia a los pequeños agricultores, campesinos e indígenas. Bajo esa línea, nuestro presidente Luis Arce Catacora propuso en la Asamblea General de Naciones Unidas un programa global de soberanía alimentaria que garantice a los pequeños productores mejores condiciones para la producción, que implique el acceso a semillas, fertilizantes, tecnología, infraestructura, créditos y acceso a los mercados para mejorar las condiciones de pequeños productores y comunidades en armonía con la madre tierra. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, the representative from Bolivia. Next, could I call on the representative from Burkina Faso? 2 minutes, please.
Okay. Merci bien, madame. Je suis honoré de prendre part au nom du Burkina Faso à ce sommet bilan sur la mise en œuvre des voies nationales prises en 2021, au moment où les nations du monde entier sont confrontées plus que jamais au défi de construire des systèmes alimentaires durables et résilients à même de parvenir à la fin zéro en 2030. En effet, la mise en œuvre de la feuille de route de la voie nationale de mon pays s'est passée dans un contexte marqué par l'instabilité institutionnelle, le défi sécuritaire, la persistance des effets des changements climatiques et la répercussion de la guerre russo-ukrainienne. Néanmoins, avec l'engagement et la détermination des acteurs des systèmes alimentaires, notamment les acteurs publics et privés, les partenaires techniques et financiers, ainsi que la société civile, de nombreux acquis ont été engrangés. Les principales réalisations au cours des 2 dernières années de mise en œuvre de la feuille de route sont la mise en œuvre de l'initiative présidentielle assurer à chaque enfant en âge scolaire au moins un repas équilibré par jour, qui a permis la dotation de 12 000 écoles en 40 000 tonnes de vivres, la mise en œuvre de l'initiative présidentielle produire 1 million de tonnes de riz afin d'assurer l'autosuffisance en riz, qui a permis de passer de 300 000 tonnes en 2019 à 438 000 tonnes en 2022. Le développement de l'entrepreneuriat communautaire par actionnariat populaire pour assurer un développement harmonieux de l'ensemble des couches sociales. La mise en œuvre des plans annuels de réponse et de soutien aux populations vulnérables à l'insécurité alimentaire et à la malnutrition. Le passage à l'échelle du plan alimentaire jeunes, enfants, nourrissons et des approches simplifiées de lutte contre la malnutrition. L'adoption de la stratégie nationale de l'agroécologie, l'élaboration du profil pays en matière de sécurité sanitaire des animaux. Excellence, Monsieur le Président, je reste convaincu que la mise en œuvre de la feuille de route serait améliorée si le pays disposait de ressources financières suffisantes. Je saisis cette opportunité pour remercier l'ensemble des partenaires du Burkina Faso, notamment le système des Nations Unies, et interpeller à nouveau toute la communauté internationale pour soutenir les plus vulnérables et surtout ceux affectés par les crises complexes dont le terrorisme.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. The representative there from Burkina Faso. Next, could I call on the representative from Cameroon?
Merci, Madame, de me donner la parole. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, permettez-moi à l'entame de mon propos de remercier Monsieur Antonio Guterres, secrétaire général des Nations Unies, pour l'aimable invitation qu'il a bien voulu adresser à son Excellence Paul Biya, président de la République du Cameroun, à prendre part aux travaux du présent sommet des Nations Unies sur le système alimentaire +2 moment de bilan. Répondant à la dite invitation, Son Excellence Paul Biya m'a fait le grand honneur de l'y représenter. C'est donc en son nom que je prends la parole. Mesdames et messieurs, pendant 2 années écoulées, le monde a connu des événements perturbateurs ayant ralenti et freiné la réalisation des objectifs de développement durable pour éliminer la pauvreté et la faim, faire face à la crise climatique, réaliser l'égalité des genres et concrétiser les ODD. Me fondant sur l'expérience camerounaise bâtie sur les concertations nationales de l'après-sommet 2021, la voie nationale qui a été tracée dans la perspective a mis en place une feuille de route. Cette feuille de route comporte les éléments opérationnels suivants: le renforcement des capacités des acteurs sur les politiques publiques de la promotion de la pratique agroécologique durable des sols et de l'eau, le développement de la production des espèces et variétés adaptées au changement climatique, la promotion et le renforcement des capacités pour la production des aliments à haute valeur nutritive sous-tendus par la politique d'import-substitution, la formation des acteurs à l'utilisation raisonnée des produits phytosanitaires, la création de ceintures agricoles autour des grandes villes pour assurer la chaîne d'approvisionnement de ces villes, l'aménagement de 400 000 hectares d'assiettes foncières pour permettre au secteur privé d'investir dans l'agriculture. Mesdames et messieurs, le Cameroun a la volonté d'aller de l'avant dans la mise en œuvre de ces axes opérationnels et reste ouvert pour cela à la coopération avec les partenaires au développement, tant bilatéraux que multilatéraux. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Next, the representative of Guinea.
Désolé, ça a été une erreur là.
Pardon?
J'ai toussé par inadvertance.
Oh, do we have the representative from Guinea? I'll move to the next person, I think, and then if the representative returns, just let us know, and someone will let me know. So please, next, the representative from Kenya.
Very much. I wish to commend the organizers of this summit on stock taking as a second time. Kenya joined the UN call for food system transformation for better production, better environment, and better life. Kenya has also reaffirmed its commitment to through the nationally determined mitigation actions. Kenya will host the African Climate Summit between the 4th and 6th of September this year, whose theme will be green growth and climate financing for Africa. And its intent is to achieve several thrusts. The country has increased awareness on climate change impacts. In 2017, we developed a strategy on climate-smart agriculture, which covers between 2017 and 2026, and it's currently under review under the new administration. We have an increased forest cover from around 5.9% in 2018 the current 12.13%, and the government aims at increasing this to 30% in the next 10 years. And the government currently has got a program of planting 15 billion trees over the next 10 years, which have been, whose target is basically with a specific sector-specific strategy and based on performance, and is put in performance contracting for the various officers. We also have a school tree growing program that basically has targeted production of fruit trees for purposes of also improving nutrition. There has been promotion of climate-smart agriculture technologies, innovations, and management practices, where there has been production of adaptive crop varieties and livestock breeds. Also promotion of index-based livestock insurance, as well as expansion on area under irrigation. The country has embarked on clean energy sources, where we have been increased solar energy production. There's also been increased wind energy generation, which has potential for about 20 gigawatts, and increased investment in geo-energy production with the potential for 10.9 gigawatts. Finally, there have been mitigation actions on climate and greenhouse gases, where we've had to bring in rescinding and fin loss system to basically contain the greenhouse gases and also biogas for purposes of burning within, among other strategies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. The representative from Madagascar, please. 2 minutes. Do we have the representative from Madagascar? If not, we can move to the representative of Nepal. The representative of Nepal, please. Do we have the representative of Nepal? Let's move to the representative of Nigeria. This is how you make up time. The representative of Nigeria? No, the representative of Nigeria isn't available at the moment. Nuaru, please. Do we have the representative of Nuaru?
Madam Moderator, thank you for giving me the floor.
Thank you.
For your information, I traveled 24 hours to get into Rome, Italy. And if I'm going to just submit and deliver my statement for 2 minutes, this is not acceptable for us.
I know.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to submit my statement, but I want to make a crystal clear point that we are not going to achieve full universal food security if you're not going to listen to a microstate like Nauru. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, you have some more time if you would like to expand a little further, or if there is a way for people to get in touch with you more directly than here.
By the way, I'm not just a representative. I'm an elected MP and a minister. Thank you.
I know that. The reason that we're calling for representatives is because some of the personnel have changed from when we did the order of play, and rather than incorrectly call people's names and might insult people or offend them, we've decided that we would just ask for the representative. So we apologize for that if any offense has been caused. Let's see, is the representative from Qatar here? The representative from Qatar?
Available.
Thank you very much.
Okay. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة السيدات والسادة، شكرا جزيلا على تنظيم هذه القمة. ولا شك أن قضية التحول في النظم الغذائية من أهم القضايا الداعمة لأهداف التنمية المستدامة للدول، وعليه فقد أدركت دولة قطر أهمية تعزيز الأمن الغذائي وتبني المبادرات الضرورية لتطوير النظم الغذائية واستدامتها. وهنا سوف أقف على أهم وأبرز هذه المبادرات التي ساهمت في تجاوز التحديات العالمية مثل الأزمات الدولية والمتغيرات الجيوسياسية وجائحة كوفيد 2019، وهي كالتالي: أولاً السعي في رفع نسبة الاكتفاء الذاتي بدولة قطر في إنتاج الدواجن والألبان الطازجة من أقل من 10% قبل أكثر من 5 سنوات إلى 100% الآن، ومضاعفة الاكتفاء الذاتي في الخضروات من 20 إلى 40% نتيجة برامج دعم المزارعين. ثانياً تنظيم الحوارات الوطنية بشأن النظم الغذائية في دولة قطر، حيث كان الأول في شهر أغسطس 2021 والثاني في مارس 2023. ثالثاً برنامج تطوير الأسواق المركزية للبيع بالجملة ورفع كفاءة الخدمات اللوجستية والتخزين للوصول السهل لمنافذ البيع وتطوير أسواق المزارعين لبيع منتجاتهم المحلية. استكمال الدراسات البحثية لاستهلاك الآمن لمياه الصرف الصحي المعالج في الزراعة للأعلاف الخضراء والتي تستهلك 70% من المياه المخصصة للزراعة. إنشاء مركز الأبحاث المائية الجديد والذي حقق نجاحا باهرا في عمل بروتوكولات إنتاج واستزراع عدد من أصناف الأسماك المحلية. بناء منصة بيانات للأمن الغذائي للمراقبة المخزون ولدعم اتخاذ القرار. كما لم تقتصر مبادرات دولة قطر على المبادرات المحلية، وإنما أيضا على الصعيد الإقليمي والدولي، حيث قامت بالدولة بعدة مبادرات لدعم البرامج ومشاريع الدول الفقيرة والنامية. فقد تعهدت دولة قطر في عام 2019 بدعم الدول الجزرية المعرضة لخطر آثار التغير المناخي بمبلغ 100 مليون دولار تستهدف آلاف المزارعين في تلك الدول. كما تعهد صندوق قطر للتنمية بيل وميلاند جيتس من خلال مبادرة تنمو بتقديم ما يصل إلى 200 مليون دولار لدعم التنمية الاقتصادية الزراعية في جنوب الصحراء الكبرى الأفريقية. وجميع ما ذكر على سبيل المثال للحصر على الدور الفاعل الذي تلعبه دولة قطر في السير في إجراءات وتطوير النظم الغذائية. وبالنظر إلى ما سبق فإننا نوصي وندعو إلى ضرورة الأخذ بالاعتبارات التالية ضمن الأجندة القادمة لعام 2030. أولاً الاستثمار في التكنولوجيا وتمهيل الابتكار والبحث العلمي لتطوير آليات الزراعة الذكية. ثانياً استمرار في تقديم الدعم والتمويل للصغار المزارعين وتمكينهم واستخدام الطاقة الشمسية والمتجددة وأيضا وحدات تحلية المياه التي تساهم في استدامة الموارد. ثالثا إنشاء مخزونات احتياطية محلية وإقليمية لمواجهة الأزمات وتطوير تقنيات اقتصادية لإطالة أمد الأغذية سريعة التلف بحيث يمكن موازنة العرض والطلب في الأسواق أثناء وخارج مواسم الحصاد.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed, the representative from Qatar. Now, we haven't heard from the representatives from Madagascar, Nepal, and Nigeria, so we're just going to leave them for now, but we have noted that you haven't had an opportunity to contribute, so we will go back to you at another stage, and that is an absolute guarantee. So we'll just close this session for now, but before we do that, some final thoughts from our panelists, if we may. Does anyone have anything they would like to say in terms of, any of the contributions they've heard this afternoon? Please go ahead, Dr. Fang.
Well, I think it's not on yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's on now, right? I think we have discussed about working with farmers, with women, with youth, and with the private sector, with the research organizations. Here, I want to emphasize we also must work with our consumers. Consumers should change our diets, use our diets to really lead the whole value chain of food system transformation. So make sure that we eat healthily, nutritiously, and sustainably to cut down the red meat consumption. I think that's the point I wanted to add.
So many actors need to be involved. It's a multi-sectoral approach. Okay. Anyone else like to share some final thoughts? Yes, Mr. Cooper. Your mic's working.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say, as one of the countries embarking on food systems transformation, in Liberia, we looked at all of the challenges which are daunting. We looked at the number of strategies and policies and reports and assessments that had been done, which are daunting. And we decided to just get out there and do it. We may make mistakes along the way, but there's nothing like doing it and demonstrating that it can be done to engender transformation. So I just wanted to add that to what I said earlier. Thank you.
All right. Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, probably one key point I want to highlight is the importance of the resources mobilizations and also the coordinations. While we're here this afternoon is the scale of challenges and also the issues, severities, but sometimes also scarcity of the resources. So now for all the international financial institutions, we joined together, formulate the action plan for the food security already. Moving to the next stage, not only just working among the FIs, but also with our private sector, UN systems, and also the academies. That is also important. So for the next stage, mobilize the resources, but sometimes introduce innovations. Financial innovations, technologies innovations, also very critical. So again, I hope the type of the forum can continue, not only just once 4 years or once 2 years, probably.
Dialogue.
Every, dialogue, small group is also essential. Let me just pause here. Thank you.
Thank you. If that's it, final thoughts from our panel, we will close this session and thank everybody for taking part. We hope the dialogue continues after this, but not after the next panel. Just wait a moment, please. So could we thank our panel, please? And while they are leaving the stage, we will have a short video which looks at sustainable projects. We know that there is a crisis at the moment, but this short video will help explain more about what can be done. Thank you.
The acceleration of already high food, fertilizer and fuel prices has triggered a global crisis that could drive millions more into extreme poverty, magnifying hunger and malnutrition, whilst threatening to raise the global humanitarian caseload to new highs and erase hard-won development gains.
now we're getting ready to move on to our next panel, and I believe the panelists will be joining us momentarily. And this panel, while we're waiting for our panelists to join us on the stage, is to look forward, to look ahead, to talk about what needs to happen in order to have impact. We'll be hearing from 6 contributors on this, all experts in their own fields and in their own countries. We'll be looking at local production for local consumption, regenerative agriculture and soil restoration, reducing post-harvest losses, institutional food procurement, and putting youth, especially young women, at the centre. So could I ask our next panel to please make their way to the stage? I think they're going to be assisted. I know people want a break after having sat through quite a long session, but you're welcome. Thank you very much. So again, this panel is about calls to action for more resilient food systems. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you. Thank you. Yes, you should all have a microphone, and there's no need to worry. They will all start when you start to speak. They will work. So if we can just get straight into this panel and not delay. Her Excellency Anne Bethe Finneran, who's Minister of International Development in Norway, you're joining us today, having travelled obviously from Norway. And let me ask you, when you think about food systems and resilience, what would you like to say to people in the room who are grappling with similar, but maybe not always similar, issues in terms of resilience?
I'd like to just put one thing forward, and that is to put the small-scale producer at the core. At least that's sort of the bottom line in our strategy that we have recently launched for food security in our development policy, to put the small-scale farmer at the core of food production. We know that in Africa, for instance, there are 33 million small-scale producers, most of which are women, and they produce 70% of the consumed food. That is 33 million potential businessmen, businesswomen, all ready to contribute to bottom-up food security, given the right inputs, finance, fertilizers, easily available technology, which could be climate smart. But one thing is to increase productivity in a climate smart manner. We also have to connect these small-scale farmers to the local and regional market. And that is where it gets complex, but it's not brain surgery. It's about logistics and infrastructure. It's about cold chains, energy. It's about organizing the farmers, and it's about processing industry. And now I'm getting to the point, because I know you want me to be very swift. Africa imports $75 billion worth of foodstuffs every year.
How much?
$75 billion. That is a huge lost opportunity, not only in terms of food security, but also in terms of job creation. Imagine the amount of jobs that could be created from the producer on the soil through processing industry, logistics, sales, marketing. And we know that in many developing countries today, there is a missing link between the urban and rural societies. Many megacities today import most of their often unhealthy foods from other continents, while small-scale farmers in the nearby areas are not able to sell their products. So that's why I'm saying it's not brain surgery, it's just very complex. So to sum up, my conclusion is we need to talk more about food sovereignty. Food security is about calories, extremely important. But if we are able to add that perspective of food sovereignty, that gives us a kinder egg, a triple win. It's food security, it's local economic development, and it's a climate-friendly solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. And as we proceed along the panel, I will introduce each of you. beside the Minister is the Minister for Agriculture of the Democratic Republic of Congo, His Excellency Jose Mapandu Kabunga. As Minister for Agriculture, presumably you're intimately involved in the needs of food producers and farmers in your country. Does what Minister Tiverinum has had to say resonate with you? And I'm sure you have plenty of thoughts you would like to share.
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais d'abord remercier les organisateurs, notamment le Programme alimentaire mondial pour l'invitation, mais également le secrétaire général des Nations Unies pour l'invitation qu'il a pu faire au président Tshisekedi, qui n'a pas pu venir, mais qui nous a donné le mandat de lui représenter à ces forums, ces si grands forums. Mais également les partenaires FAO, PAM et FIDA qui ont pu, et même le gouvernement italien qui ont organisé ces grands forums. Les problèmes de l'insécurité alimentaire et même nutritionnelle que posent beaucoup de pays africains, notamment la RDC. Donc je voudrais d'abord rappeler que la RDC en Afrique, c'est parmi les pays qui ont des potentiels. Nous réunissons toutes les conditions possibles en termes de terres. Nous sommes un pays qui représente plus de 80 millions d'hectares de terres arables, 4 millions irrigables qu'on peut semer du janvier en décembre. Mais nous avons un sérieux problème d'insécurité alimentaire, surtout pour les enfants dans des zones, notamment les zones qui sont frappées par la guerre. Vous savez que la RDC fait l'objet d'une agression forte des pays voisins. Ces pays-là présentent, la RDC présente une insécurité alimentaire aiguë, mais qui, avec les partenaires qui sont là, notamment les FAO et PAM, FIDA, qui appuient, mais pose des problèmes. La plus grande difficulté que nous avons pour arriver à juguler l'insécurité alimentaire, c'est notamment permettre à ce que l'on puisse appuyer les bassins de production, c'est-à-dire là où il y a notamment l'agriculture qui s'est fait avec l'automatisation de la femme et de la jeune, pour qu'ils, quand ils produisent, qu'on arrive à ramener sur les bassins de consommation. Il se pose un problème, il faut un accompagnement. Il arrive qu'il y a des terres qui sont potentiellement plus riches, mais les partenaires qui sont avec nous dans nos pays devraient normalement essayer de voir les problèmes d'agriculture dans sa globalité. Aujourd'hui, vous pouvez produire, mais quand vous ne savez pas évacuer la production dans les bassins de consommation, tout ce qu'il y a comme production arrive à pourrir, à s'abîmer dans les bassins de production. Mais également, quand on dit aujourd'hui, avec l'agenda de transformation agricole, avec la chaîne de production pour arriver à l'agenda 2030, mais il faut l'énergie. Il faut qu'on accompagne avec l'énergie. L'agriculture prise seule, isolée, n'arriverait pas à atteindre l'objectif. Il faut qu'il y ait un accompagnement des autres secteurs autour de l'agriculture. Donc, généralement, nos partenaires, FAO, moi je parle de la République catholique, FAO, PAM, ils prennent l'agriculture d'une manière isolée. Or, arriver à accompagner l'agriculture d'une manière isolée, ça ne nous arriverait pas à atteindre l'insécurité, à juguler l'insécurité alimentaire ou la sécurité alimentaire. Il faut prendre l'agriculture dans sa globalité, avec des autres secteurs, notamment l'énergie, notamment le développement rural, notamment l'infrastructure, notamment le numérique, pour arriver à faire de l'agriculture une mécanisation. Voilà, nous avons des problèmes. Il faudrait que non seulement qu'il y ait les partenaires, mais il faut aussi que les privés, qui sont les socles, l'agriculture est basée sur les privés qui doivent nous accompagner normalement. Donc, nous disons, pour arriver à atteindre l'agenda 2030, promis par les Nations Unies, il faudrait qu'il y ait d'autres acteurs qui accompagnent l'agriculture pour pouvoir juguler l'insécurité alimentaire. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you. I'd like to move next to His Excellency Yeshe Penjor, who's the Minister of Agriculture and Forests in Bhutan.
Thank you, first of all, Madam Moderator, for introducing me. And just to make a small correction in the title of the ministry, as a national transformation is taking place in the country, there has been some restructuring in the organization. So the ministry is no more Minister of Agriculture and Forests, but it is the Minister of Agriculture and Livestock, and very specifically designated to undertake the food security, food and nutrition security in the country. As many of the participants here in the August Hall may not know about Bhutan, may not be knowing about Bhutan, just to give a small introduction of the kingdom. It's a small Himalayan kingdom located in between China in the north and India in the south, and the Bhutan's agroecology is that the agri-food production landscape is dominated by smallholder farmers, and we still import about 50% of our food resources. The population is less than 1 million, and then the country's total area is little more than 38,000 square kilometers, and around 70% of the forest of the kingdom is under forest cover. And for that, also it is a very rugged Himalayan terrain, giving less than 3% of the land cover under arable opportunities. So that itself gives a strong challenge or a daunting challenge for the kingdom to actually meet the food self-sufficiency or the food security. Now, talking of the sustainable food systems or the food systems, I think it is in itself is a complex system, and equally it is complex when we talk of the resilience topic. So let me narrow down my resilience discussion to few specific areas. Now, firstly, for Bhutan, as the arable land is limited, and also because of the rugged mountain terrain, the environmental challenges, the working space challenges itself is very difficult, and that adds to, that's been added by now the climate change impacts on the mountain ecosystem. Because Bhutan has been championing in the biodiversity conservation, now the impact on the food production is the wildlife predation on both agriculture and livestock. Because of being a landlocked country, and also with the limited production, the global food chain disturbance, as well as the inflation of the cost of production itself is a challenge. And then, of course, as a least developed country, in the disparity of the opportunities to, in terms of accessibility to food resources, as well as the affordability to access the food resources, it's definitely a big challenge. So for this, the perspective of Bhutan is that networking, cooperation, partnership of the food resilience by all, for all, is a sustainable option when we talk of the food resources, meaning that without the cooperation and support of the international community, of the development partners, the developed countries, I think it is not a standalone capacity that we can talk of sustainable food resilience in a country like Bhutan. So that way, to address the challenges of the land space, the rugged mountain terrain, land development is a priority. And because of the climate change, the water resources are drying up. the invasive pests and diseases are becoming prominent. So, and the value chain industries are very, very limited. The marketing opportunities are limited. So for this, it is definitely a call on for all the development partners to support a small country like Bhutan to be sustainable in its food systems and develop resilience in the food systems. So with these few notes, I would like to once again thank the WFP and the organizers here for giving the opportunity. And with these few words, I thought I've reflected the situation of the sustainable food systems in Bhutan and how development partners can support Bhutan to become food resilient. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Ms. Estherine Futebong is Director of Programme Implementation and Coordination Directorate at the African Union Development Agency Planning and Coordinating Agency. Thank you for joining us. Would you like to speak to your country's viewpoints and observations and the work it's been doing in this area?
Thank you and good afternoon. While I'm representing the African Union Development Agency in NAPAD, so I will speak on behalf of the African Union and its development agency. Resilience is principally about relationships. And we want to see this relationship perhaps in 3 areas. Relationship with the principal stakeholders in this regard, women, youth, and smallholder farmers. Relationship with our natural assets. In this case, we're looking at soil and water, and relationship with the global community as a whole, as actors within this important space. As the African Union Development Agency, we do work with our member states to support the implementation of the Comprehensive Agricultural Development Program, CADAP, which is the continental framework for agricultural transformation in the continent. And what we are supporting and working with member states is to have a planning process that is robust and that is integrated. So ensuring that issues of climate change, issues of health and nutrition, issues as defined in the food system pathways of member states, as defined in the indices of member states, are integrated in the national agricultural investment plans and strategies in our countries. And principally emphasizing the issues of boosting local production as the principal way of ensuring that smallholder farmers are given the support and the space to increase their production, but also participate in the local value chains and markets, as well as ensuring that they have all the necessary support, including financing, to engage in the space. Principal programs that we have include the school feeding program, which is a key example of how you can help build resilient food systems by ensuring that you build the capacity for production, but also securing institutional markets or procurement for the smallholder farmers. So in terms of policy, we are very strong in ensuring that that relationship is there. And giving women and youth the opportunity to participate in these local supply chains is critical in the work that we do. I have to also mention, as African Union, we do give particular emphasis on small island states to be able to raise their voice on these critical issues. I did mention the second area of relationship is that with our natural assets, soil and water, and this is expressed through the work that we do on climate-smart agriculture. I think that has been spoken elaborately by other actors, so I don't really have to go into it. But really to ensure that we bring the technologies that is necessary, the improved inputs and seeds that is necessary to help member states to practice ecologically smart and regenerative practices. We do have a big program on climate smart women in climate smart agriculture that we support, and a very strong program as well. I mentioned the school feeding program. We also support the work to address post-harvest loss as a critical aspect in building and managing this critical relationship with our soil and water, as well as input. Thirdly, we need to strengthen institutional innovations for food security and climate change. Many stakeholders are involved, and it's important that coordination at the national level is enhanced between the different ministries. We need to also bring stronger support to smallholder farmers, women farmers and youth who are innovators, and give them the space to participate in policy-making forum. Lastly, the small farmers, I think the minister from Norway spoke so eloquently about them. I just want to add that I completely support what she said. In the case of Africa, smallholder farmers, particularly smallholder women farmers, are critical. So we need to pay particular attention in terms of capacity building and giving them the necessary space to be able to empower them and ensure they participate in this space. Lastly, but more importantly, investments. We are not going to make much progress if we just talk and we don't design concrete programs that bring real resources for the implementation of these programs to ensure that we build strong and resilient food systems. So
thank you.
I will just add, and lastly add that at a global level, and this is what this forum is about, this relationship doesn't have to be short-term. It has to be long-term engagement between development partners, and in this instance, African countries expect resources, technology transfer, financing to be able to invest in the critical programs that can bring and build resilient food systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Coordination and engagement there at the local, national, and continent level, and also with other stakeholders externally. Next, could we go to Brazil and the National Secretary for Food and Nutrition Security, Mrs. Lilian Rahal.
Thank you very much. Okay.
It's working.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll talk a little bit about food, public procurement of food and family farming. Over the last 20 years, Brazil has strongly promoted public procurement of food produced by family farming, especially with the creation of the Food Purchase Program. Through this program, our federal government buys food from family farmers, many of them women, empowering them and contributing to local development by boosting the economies of thousands of municipalities. The government then donates this food, guaranteeing access to food for vulnerable populations. The innovative strategy of the Food Purchase Program was created by civil society organizations that participate in the National Council for Food and Nutritional Security. Seeking to promote both healthy eating and environmental conservation, the program pays 30% more for organic and agroecological production, contributing to the creation of sustainable product chains in all Brazilian biomes, including the Amazon. The Food Acquisition Program also brought innovations to the Brazilian school meals program by dispensing the bidding process for purchasing food directly from family farms, bringing healthier meals to more than 40 million children and teenagers. The program's success inspired the creation of similar programs in other countries, which sought cooperation for their implementation. Brazil, with the support of organizations such as FAO, WFP, and IFAD, provides support to these countries within the scope of South-South cooperation. For the past 20 years, many family farming organizations have been accessing these programs of food procurement. Thanks to it, they have empowered to explore. Thanks to it, the family farmers have been empowered to explore other markets, public or private, regional, national, and even international. This program demonstrates the enormous potential of public food purchase to leverage family farming and to allow it to meet the food demand of hospitals, university restaurants, and military installations, among other public facilities. In recent years, the program was weakened and partly replaced, losing most of its innovative capacity, its research, and its focus on the most vulnerable public and territories. Following the dismantling of public policies, Brazil experienced a period of regression in all food security indicators. Recently, many of you here heard of the food emergency experienced by Yanomami indigenous population in Brazil, a clear violation of the human right to adequate food. However, it's with great joy that I inform you that just a few days ago, the Brazilian Congress, following the federal government's initiative, approved the recreation of the food acquisition program. The resumption of the program brings 5 essential advances, including parity in the participation of women producers in the program, simplification for the participation of indigenous people, traditional communities, Black people, women, and rural youth, increased focus on the poorest family farmers, mandatory minimum percentage of public procurement of food from family farming by federal agencies, expansion of civil society participation in the program's governance. So the return of the food purchase program takes place in the larger context of the restoration of national policies to fight against hunger and to promote food security and nutrition. For Brazil, public procurement is part of this large framework of rights-based social protection, which we believe is fundamental to promoting healthier, more sustainable, and fairer food systems, and to achieve all SDGs, in particular SDG 2, Zero Hunger and Sustainable Agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Public procurement, very much of the mind there of Brazil. To Colombia now, and the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Jennifer Mojica. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Un saludo a los organizadores y el Programa Mundial de Alimentos por su invitación. Bueno, Colombia es un país que tiene acceso al Océano Pacífico y Atlántico, es atravesada por la cordillera de los Andes, tiene una gran parte de su territorio dentro del bioma amazónico y tiene más del 30% de su territorio en áreas protegidas. Llevamos 50 años de conflicto armado basado en la disputa por el acceso a la tierra y por el acceso a condiciones de desarrollo humano. Estamos implementando un acuerdo de paz desde 2016 y en este momento nuevamente estamos generando acuerdos y negociaciones de paz con otros grupos armados ilegales. Y en Colombia hay muchas inequidades. Recientemente salieron informes que confirman que 1/3 de nuestra población está en inseguridad alimentaria y esta situación se agrava frente a familias que viven en la ruralidad, frente a familias con jefatura femenina o de comunidades campesinas, indígenas o negras. Tenemos 43 millones de hectáreas dentro de nuestra frontera agrícola, de las cuales se producen en agricultura 8 millones de hectáreas y un potencial para triplicar esto, mientras debemos reducir la ganadería en la mitad. tenemos una enorme responsabilidad que compartimos con nuestros vecinos, especialmente con Brasil, y es poder desarrollar de manera sostenible la Amazonía. Y cuando hablamos de la resiliencia, hablamos, como decían mis compañeros de panel, de la reciprocidad y de esa interdependencia que hay en este planeta. Pues resulta que el mundo no es tan grande como lo pensábamos. Y las recientes crisis, la pandemia, la guerra de Ucrania, la crisis climática, la sequía, nos demuestra una vez más que dependemos todos. Y eso hace que tengamos que tener un mayor nivel de responsabilidad y de justicia ambiental frente a las comunidades que protegen y conservan los recursos naturales y la Amazonía en nuestro caso. Desde el gobierno colombiano quisiéramos hacer crecer nuestra agricultura. El presidente Gustavo Petro viene generando un liderazgo mundial en torno al cumplimiento de los compromisos climáticos porque queremos mostrar que una agricultura sostenible es la mejor oportunidad de una transición que permita la sostenibilidad del planeta, que permita no llegar al punto de no retorno, que permita contribuir a esos objetivos climáticos, pero que también garantice la seguridad y la seguridad alimentaria puntualmente de sus poblaciones. Nuestra propuesta, además de incorporar todo lo que se ha dicho estos días, que de paso quiero decirles que me emociona que estemos hablando en los mismos términos de hacer transiciones hacia los bioinsumos, hacia la agroecología, fortalecer la agricultura familiar campesina, fortalecer los mecanismos propios y autónomos para garantizar las dietas saludables, la gastronomía a partir de la biodiversidad y economías locales, es algo en lo que creo que vamos avanzando bien. Pero hace falta ir más allá. Colombia, por ejemplo, podría alimentar al mundo con lo que el mundo hoy necesita. Colombia produce el 70% de sus alimentos a partir de la agricultura familiar campesina y de pueblos indígenas y negros y pescadores, y podría crecer 3 veces. Podemos fácilmente propiciar una agricultura orgánica, una agricultura libre de insumos químicos, porque todavía allí no se ha impuesto totalmente este modelo, y podríamos generar el granero universal que alimenta el planeta. Tenemos una enorme biodiversidad y una enorme disposición de agua dulce, pero necesitamos, para generar esa función, que yo creo que es una función humana vital, tan vital como lo es las funciones ambientales, necesitamos una reciprocidad. Recientemente nuestros presidentes Lula y Petro decían al mundo: tenemos que cambiar ese pensamiento de la Amazonía. La Amazonía no es ese dosel hermoso de una selva virgen, no es un santuario, es un lugar de vida de todas nuestras comunidades. Y si el mundo necesita de nosotros, nosotros también necesitamos que en justicia el mundo nos observe. Tenemos que hacer grandes saltos sociales, tenemos que garantizar una seguridad humana integral, tenemos que hacer inversiones productivas en riego, en transformación, en agroindustria, pero podemos perfectamente, con el apoyo de todos, alimentar al planeta. Un planeta sano se hace a partir de la protección de las comunidades locales, de sus derechos territoriales. Nosotros tenemos una política de reforma agraria que precisamente busca asegurar esto, y una política de desarrollo que busca hacer crecer la agricultura para el mundo.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister, there. And the potential in Colombia for a greater yield and productivity of food, obviously dependent on engagement and cooperation with external factors. Let's now have some interventions from the floor. We'd like to return to the individuals and the countries we weren't able to get to for one reason or another the last time. But first of all, I'd like to call on the representative from the Global Agriculture and Food Security Programme. 2 minutes, please, if you can.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Global Agriculture and Food Security Programme. The GAFSP is a financing platform that since its inception has channeled over 2 billion in donor funds to support resilient food systems and sustainable development through almost 300 projects implemented by our development partners, including the Rome-based agencies and the major multilateral development banks and the international financing institution. And in September 22, the GAFSP launched a new call for proposal with the objective to address the global food crisis and build resilience. And this call required the proposal to align with existing agriculture and food security country strategies. And the UN Food Systems Summit national pathways were listed as valuable references for project proposals and eligible strategies for GAFSP-funded activities. So moving from this experience, I would like to provide a few reflections to feed this important discussion. So first, as our distinguished speakers mentioned, to truly have impact in improving food security and nutrition, the idea that are emerging from this summit should be translated into practical actions. And to do so, it is important to design specific and actionable plans, while also continuing forming strong partnership with programs like GAFSP that are instrumental to operationalize these plans. Secondly, while the national pathways potentially represent a valuable tool in building resilient food system, during the launch of our call, we observed that only 2 of the 58 countries where we operate in are ready to use national pathways. And this highlights the importance of accelerating the formulation of these pathways in increasing the number of countries that have a pathway ready to use and enable programs like the GAFSP to actually promote the use of these tools and achieve resilient food systems. And in closing, I would like to share some final thoughts on strategies that have been effective in time of crisis as emerged from our portfolio. During the COVID-19 pandemics, we observed that 80% of those projects in our portfolio, which are led directly by farmers' organizations, were able to readjust and respond to the crisis in a timely manner. And this shows that organized smallholder farmers have a remarkable capacity to respond to their community needs, and they are resilient in face of shocks. So today we have talked a lot about the role of governments and private sector, but involving smallholders, farmers, and local communities in this dialogue, it's also very crucial, as these actors are the best positioned to identify the actual needs of their communities and to quickly implement solutions.
Right.
And to conclude, the stakeholders and evidence-based approach tailored to country-specific context and community needs, it's also instrumental to shift from the short-term crisis to a long-term resilience. And thank you again for the opportunity to share our experience and perspective, and to all the stakeholders that are contributing to this debate.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Is the representative from Guinea here? I think it was not available the last time, but if the representative from Guinea is here and would like to speak, that would be welcome. If not, we can then try to go to the representative from Madagascar. Is the representative from Madagascar here?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Madame Chair. Je vais parler en français. Donc, par rapport au système alimentaire résilient, nous voulons partager que nous avons instauré des systèmes d'information justement sur la sécurité alimentaire et la vulnérabilité dans le pays, notamment dans le sud. Et pour accroître la résilience des systèmes alimentaires en zone urbaine en particulier, et face au changement climatique, nous avons élaboré un référentiel des actions pour les zones urbaines et lancé une action pilote dans la capitale. De plus, des stratégies sectorielles intégrant la gestion environnementale et climatique et promouvant la mise à l'échelle de l'agriculture intelligente face au climat et la faible émission de carbone ont été adoptées. Nous avons incité des ménages en récompensant les bonnes pratiques de protection environnementale, avec plus de 8000 ménages qui ont bénéficié de mécanismes d'incitation déployés dans plusieurs districts de Madagascar. Ce que nous souhaitons émettre justement par rapport à ces systèmes alimentaires résilients, c'est de renforcer les programmes de sécurité sociale pour les populations les plus vulnérables, et particulièrement les enfants et les femmes enceintes. Et il faut aussi intensifier la diversification alimentaire et améliorer la qualité de la nutrition. Je l'ai mentionné ce matin lors de mon intervention. Mais par rapport à la mise à l'échelle des systèmes d'alerte précoce pour pouvoir anticiper et prévenir les crises alimentaires, nous comptons aussi sur la synergie des différents intervenants au niveau du pays. Et par rapport à cela, il faut renforcer la coordination et la collaboration entre les acteurs impliqués dans le secteur. Pour un système alimentaire résilient, il faut aussi assurer l'implication du secteur privé. Et pour cela, Madagascar a mis en place un cadre législatif incitatif pour que le secteur privé soit partie prenante des investissements dans le domaine du secteur agricole, s'entend agriculture, élevage, pêche. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Is the representative of Nepal available? The representative of Nepal? If not, then perhaps the representative of Nigeria? Yes, Nepal, Nigeria. Beg your pardon.
Okay. On what we've been doing on the food system, since the initiative started, we've been working hard from the federal level down to the state level, ensuring that this initiative, is undertaken. And from the federal level, we felt and know that implementation will happen at the grassroots level, and that is why the state governments are being encouraged to ensure full implementation of the food systems. So we've developed action plans, and we've identified key priorities that we want to take on. It's not that every activity is not implemented, but there are 3 that are key to government, and those borders on establishment of home gardenings, where we want families and schools to have home gardenings, and for the state government to strengthen the farm estates in all the states, because we believe that when the farm estates are viable and functional, that the states and the regions, they concentrate in producing those things that they have comparative advantage in producing. And with that, the farmers and those engaged in the entire food system chain, they will have better livelihoods. So far, we've tried to decentralize coordination within the regions or the zonal zones, and the zones, they've taken up the coordination of the food systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Could we call on the representative from the Philippines, if the representative is available?
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you.
Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank, of course, the panel for their very important contributions to the discussions on how agriculture and food systems can be more sustainable and resilient. Agriculture Undersecretary and National Food Systems Convener of the Philippines, Mercedita Zumbilya, who was recently in Rome for the FAO conference, would like us to share highlights of our country's efforts to achieve prosperous, sustainable, equitable, and resilient food systems for all. President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and the concurrent Secretary of the Department of Agriculture is resolute on fast-tracking the transformation of the Philippine food system to achieve greater access to safer and more nutritious food towards healthier and more sustainable consumption patterns. With the incorporation of the strategies of the Philippine National Food Systems Transformation Pathway in 3 significant national policy and planning documents, namely the Philippine National Food Policy, the National Agriculture and Fisheries Modernization and Industrialization Plan 2021 to 2030, and the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028, the whole of nation has been called upon to help achieve the objectives. To ensure that this collaboration happens, the President signed Executive Order number 27 in May 2023 to reinstitutionalize once again the Interagency Task Force on Zero Hunger that was mandated to ensure food security during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. A pilot food stamp program was also launched this month with children and nursing mothers as key beneficiaries to promote healthy, balanced meals that address child malnutrition. Efforts to boost agriculture productivity and production are being continued, but now more mindful of doing these by boosting sustainable soil health and integrated water resource management and implementing climate-resilient agriculture. The other interventions being vigorously implemented to increase farmers' and fisherfolk's income and to ensure a variety of safe and nutritious food reach consumers are those that strengthen the commodity value chains. The Philippine Rural Development Project Scale Up will continue to expand farm-to-market roads and ramp up the Farmers and Fisherfolk Clustering and Consolidation Program to foster the sector's digitalization and modernization and strengthen value chains.
Okay.
There are other interventions that we hope to highlight in the next stock-taking session. The support of development partners to sustain this momentum cannot be overemphasized. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The representative from the Philippines there. Republic of Congo, is the representative from the Republic of Congo available? The Republic of Congo? Yes, thank you.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. C'est un honneur pour moi, au nom du gouvernement de mon pays, de prendre la parole à l'occasion du sommet des Nations Unies sur les transformations des systèmes alimentaires. Le gouvernement du Congo a fait des objectifs de développement durable, ODD et l'ODD 2 fin zéro, une priorité. Dans cette optique, le pays s'est organisé pour se donner les moyens lui permettant d'atteindre la transformation durable des systèmes alimentaires au cours de la prochaine décennie, en accord avec l'agenda 2030. C'est pour cela que plusieurs points de ce programme se retrouvent être inclus dans le programme de développement national du pays, PND, de 2022 à 2026. Compte tenu du fait que nous n'avons pas beaucoup de temps, je voudrais attirer votre attention sur les points suivants qui devaient faire l'objet soit des études, soit des recherches. Il s'agit de la restauration des forêts et des paysages dégradés, la lutte contre la pauvreté des communautés riveraines des forêts, la recherche des opportunités pour la création des zones de franchise économique, pour la durabilité de l'exploitation des forêts. Tous ces points qui sont liés à la lutte contre les changements climatiques. Changement climatique qui fait partie du gouvernement de notre pays et plus particulièrement de notre président, son Excellence M. Denis Sassou Nguesso. C'est ainsi qu'avec le concours de ses homologues chefs d'État du Brésil et de l'Indonésie, le président congolais a décidé d'agir pour la protection de la planète Terre en organisant du 26 au 28 octobre 2023 le deuxième sommet dit des 3 bassins, à savoir l'Amazonie, Bornéo, Mekong et du Congo. Sommet auquel, naturellement, beaucoup d'entre vous vont prendre part et j'ai entendu la ministre de la Colombie décrire avec brio les problèmes qui se posent au niveau de la forêt dans son pays. Et, naturellement, la Colombie sera invitée. Donc, je vous remercie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So next, could we go to the representative from Romania, please? The representative from Romania.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and pleasure to be here today and to speak on behalf of the Romanian Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development at this important stock-taking event. The COVID pandemic, the armed conflict in Ukraine, the energy crisis, as well as climate change, or the escalation of transborder plant and animal diseases have affected countries around the world directly and negatively impacting critical sectors of the economy and particularly the agri-food sectors. Also, recent developments which lead to the suspension of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, one of the most important tools to address the current food crisis, are far from supporting our efforts to revert the aggravating trend of food insecurity globally. Romania deplores this outcome and remains committed, together with our international and European partners, to work for identifying viable alternative solutions. To address these challenges, it requires international cooperation and concerted action from all stakeholders. Reversing the food hunger and hunger crisis and building resilient food systems is becoming more critical than ever, and we should strive to identify the most adequate levers for ensuring that our agri-food sectors preserve and enhance their capacity to provide the needed quantity and quality of food supplies. For building resilience and sustainable transformation of food systems, we need to ensure food security and population health, keep rural areas vital and resilient to new challenges and changes, provide efficient and effective solutions at local level to increase, develop, and transfer innovation. Also, addressing the climate change is crucial in our effort to build the resilience of our food systems. The Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development from Romania developed two national programs, the National Strategic Plan and the Sectoral Plan for Research and Development in Agriculture and Rural Development, which aim to mitigate the impact through promoting efficient management of natural resources. To conclude, reversing the food and hunger crisis and build resilient and sustainable food systems should become our imperative towards 2030. However, this is not a task for one country, for one government, or for one decision maker. This is a task for all. We need unity, we need peace, we need coordination and complementarity in our actions. And we need this because people's lives depend on this. Romania is ready to and fully committed to do its part. Thank you.
Thank you. The representative from Romania there. Could we move now to the representative from the Russian Federation, please?
Уважаемая госпожа модератор, за прошедшие 2 года удалось достичь определенных успехов в выполнении решений саммита ООН по продовольственным системам 2021 года. Россия обладает развитым агропромышленным комплексом, и основные объемы нашего агроэкспорта идут к нуждающемуся населению стран Африки, Азии, Ближнего Востока и Латинской Америки. И этим российская торговая политика диаметрально отличается от того, как выполнялась Черноморская инициатива по вывозу украинского зерна, о чем здесь некоторые говорили. Разрекламированная псевдогуманитарная инициатива на практике обслуживала интересы крупного американского и европейского бизнеса, вывозившего и перепродававшего в основном фуражное зерно и кормовую кукурузу с Украины. Развитым странам досталась большая часть украинского зерна, а наиболее нуждающиеся страны получили лишь около 3% всех объемов. Понимая важность глобальных поставок продовольствия, Россия несколько раз продлевала действие этой инициативы. В ответ западные страны зарабатывали на ней и плодили формальные и неформальные ограничения для российского сельхозэкспорта. Доля России на мировом рынке пшеницы 20%. А Украина не более 5%. Цифры говорят сами за себя. Мы вносим колоссальный вклад в обеспечение глобальной продовольственной безопасности, а заявление, что только украинское зерно кормит голодающих по всему миру, не соответствует действительности. Уважаемый генсекретарь ООН выступил вчера с призывом к России вернуться в Черноморскую инициативу. А мы бы хотели услышать призыв к Вашингтону, Брюсселю, Лондону снять не на словах, а на деле незаконные санкции с экспорта российской сельхозпродукции и удобрений. А пока в этих странах все рассказывает, что то, что связано с продовольствием и удобрениями из России, не подпадает под западные санкции. Мы проверяли, подпадает. Нет возможности для финансирования транзакций, запредельно высокие ставки страхования судов, запрет на поставки запчастей для сельхозтехники и производства удобрений. Подрыв аммиакопровода 5 июня украинской стороной перечеркнул возможность экспорта российского аммиака на мировой рынок, прежде всего в Африку. А ведь удобрения на основе этого аммиака могли помочь накормить 45 миллионов человек. Кто-нибудь, в том числе в Нью-Йорке, возвысил голос в связи с этим терактом? Если законные требования российской стороны по беспрепятственному доступу российской сельхозпродукции и удобрения на мировой рынок будут выполнены, возможно говорить о возобновлении Черноморской инициативы, естественно, в обновленном виде. Я уже превысил свой лимит. Спасибо за внимание. Я хочу только поддержать то, что сказал. I would like to support what was said by respected delegate from Naura. Спасибо.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that time is short, and it's just a challenge to try and fit in as many voices as we can in the time provided, but we hope that you all have an opportunity to speak with each other afterwards and continue the dialogue. Thank you very much, the representative there from the Russian Federation. Let's hear now from the representative from Slovenia.
Spoštovane, spoštovani, lepo pozdravljeni. Spremembe bodo velike, a prehod je treba pospešiti in zanj zagotoviti družbeno, politično in ekonomsko podlago. Pomembne prednostne naloge Slovenije na tem področju so prehod na trajnostno kmetijsko proizvodnjo in razvoj vitalnega podeželja. Večino ambicioznih ciljev za pravičen, zdrav in okolju prijazen prehranski sistem podpirajo ukrepi skupne kmetijske politike. Izpostavljam še poudarek na lokalno pridelani hrani, zagotavljanju prehrane za šolarje ter usmeritev v ekološko pridelavo. Pomemben je tudi načrt za zmanjšanje izgub hrane in odpadne hrane. V Sloveniji je biotska raznovrstnost bogato ohranjena. Veliko naporov vlagamo v skladen razvoj ruralnih območij in pridelavo proizvodov z višjo dodano vrednostjo. Seveda ne le s pomočjo finančnih podpor, ampak tudi z zagotavljanjem brezplačnega svetovanja in informacij, ki jih potrebujejo pridelovalci hrane. Zelo pomembno je izpostaviti pomen vode, zagotoviti jo moramo v času vegetacije za kmetijske rastline z vzpostavitvijo zadrževalnikov in namakalnih sistemov. Voda in hrana sta ključni za svetovni mir in stabilnost. Drug pomemben segment družbe, na katerega želimo opozoriti, so ranljive skupine, ženske in mladi na podeželju, pa tudi invalidi in osebe, ki živijo na socialnem robu. Tudi v času, ko se usmerjamo v sodobne digitalne tehnologije in se srečujemo z umetno inteligenco, moramo zagotoviti delo in priložnost tudi za te skupine, morda tudi na področju čebelarstva. Ženske imajo ključno vlogo pri pridelavi in predelavi hrane, vzgoji otrok in oskrbi starejših. Žal pa nimajo povsod enakega dostopa do storitev, izobrazbe in dohodkov, ki so ga za nekatere samoumevni. Imajo pa veliko tradicionalnih vrednot in znanja, ki se prenaša iz generacije v generacijo in to lahko s pridom uporabimo pri izgradnji trajnostnih prehranskih sistemov in prilagajanju na podnebne spremembe. V Sloveniji dajemo večjo vlogo ženskam tudi z ustanovljenim svetom za ženske na podeželju kot posvetovalnim telesom ministra. Zaradi naravne danosti v Sloveniji ne pridelamo dovolj hrane za samooskrbo in smo zato tudi odvisni od uvoza hrane. Živinoreja je zato glavni kmetijski sektor, izvozno orientirano je perutninarstvo in govedoreja s pridelkom mleka. Naša glavna prioriteta v naslednjih 2 letih je dvig samooskrbe s prilagajanjem podnebnim spremembam ter zagotavljanjem cenovno dostopne hrane potrošnikom. Zelo pomembno bo povezovanje vseh deležnikov verigi vrednosti hrane in generacijska prenova. Za hitrejši prehod k trajnostnim prehranskim sistemom mora biti vsem omogočen dostop do znanja, informacij in inovacij. Svoje znanje smo pripravljeni deliti z ostalimi. Hvala.
Thank you very much. Thank you, the representative of Slovenia. Next, could we go to the representative of Syria, please? The representative of Syria.
الحضور الكرام، أمام تحديات المناخ والأزمات والصراعات والتغيرات الاقتصادية العالمية، آن الأوان لتبني إجراءات سريعة لتحويل نظم الزراعة والغذاء نحو أنماط إنتاج واستهلاك مستدامة، للوصول إلى نمو اقتصادي شامل قائم على الحد من أوجه عدم المساواة، ودعم الدول التي تعاني من أزمات أو حالات طوارئ لتحسين أداء سلاسل القيمة للمنتجات الزراعية فيها. وعلى الرغم من أننا جميعا متفقون على مبادئ العمل في الاتجاه الصحيح، إلا أن الممارسات العملية لا تسير في هذا الاتجاه. فعلى الرغم من كل الجهود والاجتماعات والمبادرات، لا تزال ولا يزال عدد الجياع والفقراء ومستويات انعدام الأمن الغذائي في ازدياد، ولا زالت الأخطار تتزايد، ولا يزال الكثيرون يتركون بالفعل على قارعة الطريق ويحتاجون للتمكين، وخاصة من النساء والشباب. إننا في سوريا وبعد التحديات التي واجهناها بسبب الإرهاب والحصار الذي تمت ممارسته علينا من بعض الدول، نتطلع إلى التعاون مع الدول التي تؤمن وتعمل بالفعل من أجل حقوق الإنسان والأمن البشري، ومع المنظمات لتنفيذ برنامج التعافي المبكر والتنمية في بلادي، الذي يشكل حجر الزاوية لنجاح أي جهد يبذل لبلوغ أهداف التنمية المستدامة، ولا سيما أننا وضعنا استراتيجية متكاملة لتطوير الزراعة في سوريا 2021-2030. ولا بد من التركيز خلال المرحلة القادمة على الاستثمار في مجالات البحث وبناء القدرات وتعزيز الممارسات الخضراء للمنتجين والمستهلكين. وإننا نريد أن نزرع أرضنا ونطعم العالم، فارفعوا العقوبات عنا وادعمونا لنتمكن من تحقيق التنمية المستدامة.
Thank you, the representative of Syria. Is the representative of Tunisia available, please? The representative of Tunisia.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, one thing is sure, that the world is facing really many challenges, and the main of them today are climate change, pollution, biodiversity declination. And let me talk about the first issue, climate change. And here I would like to talk about my country. Yesterday, we have had a temperature more than 50 degrees. And we have had many wildfires. Many of my people left their houses. Why? Due to climate change. And especially, we are not responsible of this climate change, of these effects of climate change. And whenever I say climate change, what does it mean in my country? That we have a scarcity of water, no rain. How are we going to talk about agriculture, about food? That's why I'm not going to talk about food transformation. First of all, we need to talk about food. What about food since we don't have water? How are we going to have wheat? And by the way, I give you one example. Normally in my country, we have around 15 to 18 million tons. Last year, 7.4. This year, which is exceptional, 2.5. So you see very well here the incidences, the impacts. I am saying that why? Because, you know, we have had one summit 2 years ago. We would like to have an assessment about the output of the last summit. And what about this summit? I would like that at the end of this summit, we would like to have really concrete, real, pragmatic outputs that really can take over hunger from the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The representative from Tunisia, they're looking for concrete outputs. The representative from Uruguay, if they're available, please. The representative from Uruguay. If the representative from Uruguay isn't here, is the representative from Yemen available? The representative from Yemen.
نعم. شكرا جزيلا للميسرة، شكرا للحضور جميعا. أولا يجب أن أؤكد هنا على أهمية هذه القمة التكييمية التي تأتي في هذه الوقت الصعب، ولكنها في بالغة الأهمية بالنسبة لنا للتوصل إلى استراتيجيات لتسريع جريئا وإجراءات جريئة لتعزيز مرونة النظم الغذائية والزراعية. لا شك أنكم تدركون ما يعاني شعبنا منذ أكثر من 8 سنوات من جراح جملة الصدمات المتتالية، أبرزها الصراع والحرب وآثار التغييرات المناخية والأعاصير وفيضانات، وكذلك جائحة كوفيد-19 والحرب الروسية الأوكرانية، كلها ألقت بظلالها على الإمدادات الغذائية خاصة القمح وزيت الطعام. جميع هذه الصدمات شكلت تحركات أساسية لتزايد حالات انعدام الأمن الغذائي التي بلغ 17 مليون شخص هم بحاجة إلى غذاء، بالرغم من كافة المساعدات والتدخلات من قبل الأشقاء والأصدقاء والمنظمات الدولية التي نقول لها كل الشكر والتقدير في الوقوف إلى بلدنا. لقد حرصت الحكومة اليمنية على حشد الدعم واستغلال الموارد والمتاحة لمواجهة التحديات المختلفة التي تواجهها بلادنا، فهناك جملة من الإجراءات المتخذة ومن أهمها الاستثمار في البشر عبر تعزيز سبل العيش من خلال تطوير العديد من المهارات في دعم الشباب والمرأة الريفية والمرأة الساحلية والصيادين والمزارعين. من أبرز هذه تربية وإنتاج نحل العسل وصناعة منتجات الألبان والمكعبات العلفية المختلفة للمخلفات الزراعية، وإنتاج الأسمدة العضوية لتخصيب التربة وزيادة الإنتاج والصناعات الحرفية المختلفة. كذلك دعم الصيادين والمزارعين بنظم وسائل حديثة كوسائل الطاقة الشمسية لضخ مياه الري والبذور المحسنة والإرشاد الزراعي، وإنتاج وسائل الإنتاج للقطاع السمكي ودعمهم وصيانة المحركات ووسائل الإنتاج. تطوير طرق حصاد مياه الأمطار وبناء السدود والحواجز المائية المختلفة وصيانة المدرجات الجبلية والتركيز على المحاصيل الأكثر إنتاجية والمحاصيل النقدية وبالذات إنتاج محصول البن كمحصول النقدي. لقد دخلت وزارتنا أيضا في الشراكة مع منظمة الفاو عبر مبادرات تهدف إلى تسريع التحول الزراعي والتنمية الريفية المستدامة للقضاء على الفقر والجوع وجميع أشكال سوء التغذية. قد أظهرت هذه النتائج تحسن الملحوظ لدى المستفيدين، إلا أن هناك حاجة أكبر لتنمية القدرات وتوفير التمويل الكافي لاستمرار هذه التحول لتشمل العدد الأكبر من المستفيدين. تشمل العدد الأكبر من المستفيدين، كما أن دعم البحوث الزراعية والسمكية والاعتماد أيضا على الابتكار والتكنولوجيا سيكون له أثر أكبر في تعزيز صمود الأنظمة الغذائية والزراعية، وهنا يساعدنا في تغيير مسارات النظم الغذائية القادرة على الصمود، وتكون آليات التمويلات فيها غير تقليدية في حال تم البحث وتعزيزها بأكثر مرونة وسهولة للوصول إلى الأهداف المرجوة، بحيث نرسي فعلا المبدأ الأصيل وهو حق الغذاء لكل إنسان ولكل شخص في هذه العالم. شكرا.
Thank you. We have 2 more interventions from the floor, and then we'll come back to the panel for final thoughts on anything that they've heard in the course of the last 40 minutes or so. Could I call on the representative of Malta, please? The representative of Malta. I don't hear a mic starting, so if the representative of Malta isn't here, could the representative of Belarus join us if they're available, please? Thank you.
Спасибо за предоставленное слово, уважаемая госпожа модератор. Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Несмотря на беспрецедентное санкционное давление, с которым Беларусь столкнулась после 2020 года, наша страна продолжает быть стабильным поставщиком продовольствия. Так, в 2022 году нам удалось не только увеличить объем производства, но и значительно расширить географию поставок. Общий экспорт в истекшем году агропродовольственных товаров из Беларуси составил $8,3 миллиарда США. Беларусь является одним из крупнейших экспортеров молочной продукции, мяса птицы, рапсового масла и многих других товаров и, конечно же, удобрений. При этом мы многократно акцентировали внимание на негативных последствиях для всего международного сообщества односторонних принудительных мер, которые ряд государств вводят в нарушение устава ООН против своих политических оппонентов. Одним из главных источников угрозы глобальной продовольственной безопасности являются санкции. ФАО, Всемирный банк и многие другие авторитетные организации обращают внимание, что одной из причин роста цен стали именно санкции в отношении белорусских удобрений. Мы уверены, что пришло время для активных действий и ответственных политических решений. Нужно, наконец, всем признать, что мы живем в период планетарной трансформации, для которого характерный дефицит доверия и недостаток предсказуемости. Это результат серьезных разногласий, прежде всего между крупными державами по вопросам безопасности. В сложившихся условиях необходимо прежде всего обеспечить устойчивость товаропроводящих цепочек для продовольствия и удобрений, исключить применение в отношении них санкций и других торговых ограничений и барьеров. На это обратила внимание прошедшая в этом же зале 2 недели назад 43-я конференция ФАО. И именно от этого нужно отталкиваться при выработке мер поддержания и развития продовольственных систем. Большое спасибо за внимание.
Thank you very much, the representative there from Belarus. Some thoughts from our panel, please. I mean, we've heard a lot, but climate change also seems to have been woven right through a lot of the comments and statements that have been made. Does anything come to mind that anyone would like to address? Yes, Minister from Norway.
Thank you. First of all, I think it's very inspiring to hear the individual accounts on each nation's way to transforming their food systems. And we must keep in mind that each path must be tailor-made to local, national context. But we all have to walk the talk. We are also in the midst of a situation that requires immediate short-term action, but also to keep an eye on the long-term goals for transformation. We have to do both at the same time. And we are gathered in the midst of a global food crisis with catastrophic effects. And with respect to the current imbalance on the global market of grains and fertilizers, I would like to underline that the only responsible party is the aggressor starting a war in breach with international law. Thank you.
The Minister from Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, please. Yeah.
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais également remercier les différents intervenants dans les 40 minutes que vous avez accordées. Le système de transformation alimentaire, il faudrait que chaque pays, chaque État membre puisse avoir sa stratégie nationale. Alors, nous, le sommet qui s'est fait aujourd'hui, c'est une évaluation à mi-parcours du sommet de 2021. Alors, nous allons encore nous retrouver en 2025 pour une autre évaluation. Mais la crainte qu'il faudrait qu'on puisse avoir tous, c'est qu'il ne faudrait pas que les mêmes causes produisent les mêmes effets. Il faut une évaluation de ces systèmes de transformation alimentaire, un peu une évaluation objective de la chose. Il faut une large évaluation qui nous permettra qu'on se retrouve encore en 2025. Puisque les différentes stratégies qui se portent trouvent qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qu'il faut qu'on arrive à faire ensemble pour arriver à combattre l'insécurité alimentaire. Donc, je propose aux partenaires, à tout ce qui est comme les intervenants au niveau des Nations Unies avec le secrétaire général, pour qu'on arrive à mettre ensemble les systèmes, donc contribuer aux stratégies des systèmes nationaux pour que les mêmes causes ne produisent pas les mêmes effets, puisque tous les États semblent soulever les mêmes problèmes, mais il faut qu'on arrive à des solutions impartiales. Merci.
Thank you very much. I'm told that we have 2 more interventions from the floor, and so I would like to ask, if I may, to call on the representative from Brazil, and then after Brazil, Haiti. But first, the representative from Brazil, please.
Muy buenas tardes. Mi estimada colega, la viceministra Lilian Rahal, ha presentado la perspectiva del Ministerio de Desarrollo Social de Brasil sobre la agenda de producción y el fortalecimiento de políticas orientadas hacia la agricultura familiar. Permítame complementar esta visión con la perspectiva del Ministerio de Salud. Bajo la gestión del presidente Lula y la ministra de Salud, Nícia Trindade, Brasil ha decidido avanzar en las siguientes iniciativas intrínsecas y transversales a su sistema de salud pública. Garantizar una cobertura completa de servicios de atención primaria en salud centrados en la atención integral, no solo en programas temáticos. Nuestro objetivo es aumentar de los 50.000 equipos de atención primaria para más de 70.000 equipos en 4 años. Crear 600 equipos de atención médica para la población que vive en situación de calle. Ampliar la atención multiprofesional en la atención primaria con la implantación de más de 9.000 equipos en todo el país. Así como fortalecer el programa de salud en la escuela que vincula los equipos de atención primaria con las escuelas de su territorio con el objetivo de ampliar y calificar acciones para promover salud mental, la actividad física, la alimentación saludable y una cultura de paz, así como llevar a cabo la vigilancia alimentaria y nutricional de los estudiantes. Implementar el triaje de riesgo de inseguridad alimentaria en los servicios de atención primaria a salud y establecer flujos de comunicación con los servicios de asistencia social para garantizar el acceso a alimentos a las poblaciones vulnerables. Fortalecer las estrategias para prevenir las deficiencias nutricionales en los niños, priorizando la suplementación con micronutrientes como en polvo, según lo recomendado por la Organización Mundial de la Salud. Implementar la compra pública de alimentos de la agricultura familiar para las unidades del Ministerio de Salud Pública. Reformar las acciones de atención a salud a la población indígena, asegurando sistemas de vigilancia y respuestas a situaciones de hambruna y pobreza en sus territorios. Iniciar, un minutico más. Iniciar acciones para fortalecer y apoyar la población inmigrante, los apátridas y a los refugiados, así como para combatir todas las formas de discriminación contra esas poblaciones. Y con esas acciones aspiramos fortalecer el papel del sistema de salud pública integrado con acciones intersectoriales que promuevan la salud no solo para el presente, sino también para el futuro. Gracias.
Thank you very much. And finally, the representative from Haiti. The representative from Haiti, not with us, or yes with us. Hello. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président, distingués représentants des États membres, du secteur privé et de la société civile. En ma qualité de ministre de la Planification et de la Coopération externe et au nom du Premier ministre, le Dr Ariel Henry, je voudrais exprimer ma gratitude au gouvernement italien pour sa disponibilité à accueillir cette réunion bilan 2021-2023 et appuyer l'exercice de la révision des feuilles de route pour la transformation des systèmes alimentaires. J'interviens cet après-midi parce que je suis convaincu que ce partage d'expériences entre nos différents pays est nécessaire et peut-être même la condition sine qua non pour une meilleure orientation et une mise en œuvre efficace de nos différents programmes d'action tels qu'inscrits dans nos feuilles de route respectives. J'interviens aussi pour vous faire part de l'engagement du gouvernement haïtien, 2 ans après le sommet de 2021, pour faciliter la transformation des systèmes alimentaires. L'appui des agences des Nations Unies comme la FAO et le PAM et celui de FIDA nous ont été fort appréciables. Mesdames, Messieurs, en dépit du contexte difficile que traverse notre pays, c'est avec un sentiment de satisfaction que je vous informe que sur les 3 engagements pris par le gouvernement haïtien pour la période 2021-2023, à savoir assurer la stabilité politique et un environnement sécuritaire, développer les outils financiers adéquats pour financer les systèmes alimentaires, concevoir des stratégies de valorisation plus productives et plus résilientes de nos territoires, eh bien, ces engagements ont été partiellement respectés. Des progrès sensibles ont été enregistrés dans la matérialisation des actions qui visent notamment à garantir l'accès de tous à des aliments sains et nutritifs, à assurer la coordination et la production durable, à promouvoir les moyens de subsistance équitables, à renforcer la résistance à la vulnérabilité au choc et au stress. Déjà, nous capitalisons sur certains acquis. L'accès de plus de 80 000 entrepreneurs à des services financiers et d'assurance agricole. L'élargissement du système de protection sociale à travers la mise en œuvre de la politique nationale de protection et de promotion sociale. Cependant, les investissements nécessaires pour l'accroissement de la productivité agricole et la réduction des risques associés au changement climatique demeurent très faibles, empêchant ainsi l'exploitation du potentiel agroécologique de nos systèmes alimentaires qui pourrait assurer la disponibilité des produits vivriers toute l'année. Par ailleurs, le faible niveau d'investissement affecte de manière significative notre capacité d'exportation pour des produits tels que le café, le cacao et la mangue. Aussi, nous avons conçu une feuille de route réaliste qui nous invite à concentrer nos efforts sur des projets porteurs à effet multiplicateur rapide, à compter davantage sur les ressources nationales, à développer une vision nationale de la transformation des systèmes alimentaires largement partagée, à construire des partenariats stratégiques. En matière de perspective, nous envisageons d'ici 2025 à atteindre les objectifs suivants: réduire la proportion de personnes atteintes de l'insécurité alimentaire et de la malnutrition de 5 à 10%.
Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. Thank you. I appreciate your contribution. I know everyone's tired. I know everyone, well, maybe they're not tired. Hopefully you're energized. But I thought before we close, perhaps one more thought from the panel, and you can deliberate and come to an agreement, a UN agreement among yourselves, about who might like to say something. But yes, please.
Thank you. And thank all the speakers for this interesting contribution to this very important discussion. I think two important things that I heard coming from the floor: the importance of rural transformation as being central to the food system agenda. I think is really key. Supporting smallholder farmers, in this case, women and youth, empowering them to participate in local production and consumption seem to be a critical message that we should take from here. I'd like to say that UDNEP, my organization, and WFP are working with the member states to strengthen rapid rural transformation, empowering smallholder farmers, and bringing integrated programs at the level of communities.
Thank you so much. Thank you. One more then. One more. It's working.
Thank you. Just would like to quickly, I think, make the day conclusion in a happiness mode, because I come from a country of with a developmental principle of gross national happiness. Listening to the interventions from the colleague panelists as well as from the House, I mean, many are sounding very much encouraging in our efforts to transform the food systems for a better future. But again, there are some who sounds quite discouraging, quite, I mean, almost giving up their hopes and so on. So I just like to remind that all the problems were created by ourselves. So we have to collectively correct ourselves and then move forward. For a small country like Bhutan, with all the challenges, we, as said earlier, we have framed a developmental principle of gross national happiness. Globally, Bhutan has been the first country to declare carbon neutrality, to remain carbon neutral for all times to come. In the biodiversity conservation, we have championed so many global awards, and then, to the extent that we are facing lots of opportunity costs when it comes to agriculture and then the agri-food systems. But I think what is important is that, and also listening to the interventions, it is also sounding that in many countries there are national policies which discriminates by gender or by races or by even economic differences and so on. So I think these are some things that we need to correct, and I would like to actually, for a trial, for a good opportunity, I would like to invite all the investors, the multinational investors, the bilateral partner investors, private sector investors to give a try in Bhutan in investing for food systems and the resilience of food systems. So let's give a hope and then have a hope within ourselves. If we give up ourselves, then there's no one to pull us up. Thank you.
Let's keep up the hope. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, all of our ministers, and of course our director from the African Union for taking part. I hear partnerships, I hear multi-stakeholders, I hear consumption, production rather to consumption, and of course climate change woven in through all this, and of course the shadow, or more than a shadow of war. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you've enjoyed this panel and the discussions that took place earlier. Have a good rest of your evening.